Hello and welcome to your favorite Stat Check podcast, host favorite Stat Check podcast. It's time for episode 24 of Take All Comers, the other Vanguard, Pyra 2025. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Bortel, and I am joined by
Nick Olson Johnson. He pointed at you, dude.
Did he?
Yeah.
They were professionals, baby. I'm Lucas Troller, believe it or not.
the guy without his microphone out yet. Awesome. We're doing great.
We
are back
out right now.
Okay, plug it in, big boy. We are back after a couple weeks of nonsense for the first in two back-to-back episodes. Not literally, like we're not going to film right after this, but it'll be coming up soon, about two different team events that took place on opposite sides of the planet Earth on the last weekend of February 2025. We are today here to talk about the Pyra Cup, an international team event taking place in a tiny town in Poland, the name of which does not concern you, where I was participating as a member of Team America. Up next, we'll be talking about West Coast war bands, where Mr. Olson Johnson and Mr. Troller over here were repping the Rose City Ruffians to a pretty solid result over there as well. So look forward to that in the future. But before we get into any of that nonsense, we got a whole lot of bullshit to cover first. How we doing today, boys? How you doing, Lucas? Still no mic. How we doing today, Nick?
I'm doing great, dude. I got a mic. I'm feeling prepared, you know. Yeah. That's Lucas whining silently because he doesn't have a mic yet. So yeah, no, I'm having a good weekend. I'm having a good time playing Warhammer. We had a great time at our team event last weekend, which I think here we're today to talk about Pyra. We're gonna do like another episode solely focused on our team event, hopefully next week, or as soon as we can meet. But yeah, I've been trying out stuff. We got a tournament coming up in March 22nd here in Portland, Rosehammer 3, which I originally was just going to judge, but now I kind of want to attend it. So yeah, it's looking like a good spring. Got a lot more time for Warhammer. So yeah, good Sunday here. How about you? How are you doing, Tyler?
Man, we're just gonna pass Lucas up entirely. I love it.
I'm giving it more time, dude.
Give him a little time to get the microphone set up. Understandable.
Yeah.
It's a pretty complicated process plugging that thing in. I'm doing well, man. I am exhausted. I will talk a bunch about the Pyra prep process in this episode, but it has been a long month. Traveled to and from Poland, even though I am here in Europe, so it's not quite as long as it is for other people. I live in a small town, so getting in or out to an airport is like a rather arduous journey. This week I got sick. Everyone who went to Pyra got sick. I got it pretty okay. I wasn't that bad. I was just kind of really beat this week. Anthony died. He was out cold. He was check out. I think he talked about it on Stat Check this week, but he had like a fever well over 103 or something. I know Jurek was saying that this was the worst illness he's gotten since he became an adult. I don't know what's up with that. But yes, it's been exhausting. I just got back. I took a weekend away, did a little deep 40K detox, didn't play any Warhammer for a couple days. Went out to Sevilla, which is beautiful city in southern Spain. Highly recommend it. Gorgeous place, nice time to relax a little bit. Bit of a rough journey getting back. The car we were getting driven back in had our tire exploded, which is funny. Brought me back to was that freshman sophomore year of undergrad, Lucas? But yes, it's been a bit of a day, but we're back here to get everything up and running again. Very excited about Warhammer still. We'll talk more about the results in a sec, but coming off of Pyra with some highs and some lows, but ready to hit the ground running again after that whole thing. So deep breath. How about you, Lucas? Have you managed to figure out how to put in the USB yet?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and
Yeah,
clear.
you sound good.
Let's go, dude. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Last week's team event was really fun. It was my first time captaining something. So I guess you and I co-captained over the course of Champions Cup, Tyler, but like you really did 95% of the work. I was just there to, advise where I could, I guess, a little bit. This is my first time really like spearheading the process. So it was fun to get to kind of corral everyone and make sure we were on the right track. And I think I did a pretty decent job. And so our goal will be to do that recap show probably next weekend or the weekend after. So look forward to that. It was a really fun event. Yeah, just doing okay. Doing some more painting. I'm moving on to my 10 possessed for world leaders, which are going to look really cool. So I'm very excited about those guys right now, and just overall doing okay.
Hell yeah, dude. Glad to hear it. Man, what a wild old set of events we've got going on. Quick check-in with the Warhammer right now. We've got a new army out in the open right now. We've got Emperor's Children taking the stands. I don't know. I know, Lucas, you got a chance to play. Did you play Lennon on them?
Yes, sir.
What are those things like? I haven't heard. Like I said, this is my detox weekend. I haven't read this codex at all. What's going on with that book?
It's very fun. It feels surface level broad strokes a lot like CSM. They have a lot less just like raw firepower, but they're still doing like the Lord with 5-man packages. They've still got like good close range shooting, which is pretty cool. I guess CSM doesn't really have so much of that, but like, yeah, it feels very much the same, but also unique. Their army rule is just awesome, where they can like fall back, advance and charge, and shoot, and basically do anything you want to, but you have to choose something new, and you can't like share, which feels very like selfish in Emperor's Shield, which is really cool. Like it's such a flavor for it's my favorite type of rule, where it's very powerful, but also has like big restrictions. So. A lot of people have been like, "Oh, it's going to be so hard to wrap your head around that," but I don't think it really will. It'll take a game or two, and then you'll get the hang of it.
Was John playing the ones where you have to call your shot and how many units you're going to kill this turn?
Yes.
Man, that is the one rule that I did read, and that is the coolest rule I've seen in a hot minute. Can you break down how that works?
Yeah. So basically, at the start of the battle round, unfortunate timing, you have to make a pledge to Slanesh for how many enemy units you're going to kill that battle round. And at the end, if your warlord's alive, you can do that. And at the end of that battle round, if you've achieved at least that many kills, you get your pledge number added to a tally, and then you get a buff associated with where you are in the tally. So like once you've killed 1 unit, you get reroll once to hit. Once you've killed 3 units, you get reroll once to wound, melee and shooting. Once you've killed 5 units, you get sustained and lethal and melee. And then once you've killed 7 units, you get critical 5s at all times, melee and shooting, as far as I'm aware. So this really does a couple things, like especially because it is like a little bit of a squishy army. Eventually, you get down to some dregs, and you got like Spawn and they're like tactical marine equivalents walking around in the late game, and those dudes are running around with real 1s to hit and wound, sustained, and lethal 5s. And they have a 1 CP fuel rolls to hit strat, so like 5 tactical marines just run in and like punch your rhino to death. It's really funny. So yeah, it's it's super cool. But also like if you fail your pact, like there's no like resetting of the pact, but your warlord takes D3 mortals and it sets you behind. It's very
That's
cool.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
What are their characters like? Who is your warlord in this kind of army? Like obviously it could be Fulgrim, but I've seen mixed feelings on him.
So in specifically Coterie, you could do a couple things. I'm pretty sure Lucius can be your warlord, and Lucius is very, very good. I've also seen like Winged Demon Princes and just the basic Lords Exalted if you're not taking Demon Princes or Fulgrim. There is an enhancement for your warlord to stand back up if he passes a leadership test the first time he dies, so that can help you continue to do your pledge if you're using your warlord a little bit more aggressively, which is cool.
Sure.
Yeah, usually it's like a Demon Prince or Lucius, I think.
Is there anyone that like benefits from being damaged who like you'd want to fail your pact to take mortals on them for, and then who like rerolls to hit if they're understarting or something like that?
Character wise, no. There are one data sheet that's really interesting is the Mauler Fiend, because it's fast with fallback and charge, advance and charge, and it also gets +1 to hit when it's understarting, but that's not a character, so not really synergistic there.
That'd be kind of, but also then there's not like you don't have to hit the mark exactly. You exceed it, you still get the points, right?
Yes.
Okay. That would have been kind of fun.
That's
If
pretty
it was
cool.
like, oh snap, I killed 4 units. I got to stop right now. So I get my thinger. Oh damn, that car exploded and suddenly. But okay, cool. That's fair enough. Doesn't need to be too complicated.
It sounds like a melee detachment, but what's really cool is kills you make in shooting count toward the pledge as well. And none of the shooting is like cringe across the table shooting. It's like Noise Marines blitzing forward in a rhino, dumping out, and then blasting you because their rhinos have advance and disembark.
Nice.
And also advance and shoot, right? Because they're Emperor's children. So
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Advanced and firing deck sounds cringe, but fair enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's going on right now. Very excited to see how that shakes up the meta. Garden, Erd, and Eldar are finally out and about in full force everywhere, which is super exciting. Nick, I know you've been exploring the Eldar recently. What's going on with you over there? I haven't seen you excited about 40k like this in a minute. What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, so after our team event, we have another team event coming up in May that Lucas is probably not going to be able to attend because it's like, I think a week or two after Home Nations. So I don't think he's going to be able to attend as like a player in any capacity. And so one thing for over the course of the weekend, Lucas was like one of our big points farmers. He was like getting engineered into good matchups and coming home with great scores. He did a fantastic job at that. So I kind of thought someone else on our team needs to try to fill that role if he's not able to make it to the event. And well, Guard and Eldar are out. They're both pretty freaking strong. And we already have a really good guard player on our team with Max. So he's kind of going to be exploring that. And I was like, might as well go explore Eldar. Because if they aren't nerfed by the time May comes around, we're either going to need to know how to play them on the team, or we're going to need to have someone on the team that knows how to play them so we can practice into them, so we can engineer like pins for them. So I started, I started digging down that. I know that, what is it? Like, I've been kind of in like a little bit of a, not echo, I've been kind of cut off as well because our team event didn't play with any of the new Guard or Eldar rules. So I was just like, I'm not going to read any of these rules because I don't want to accidentally get myself confused with any of the new rules, right? I want to be playing in the old patch. Head in this tournament. We'll focus on that for the next meta. So I've been catching up on all of the stuff that, everyone else is getting up in arms about and like StatCheck's getting up in arms about. And I, found the Ynnari rules, which back in 8th edition, I think someone was explaining the Incarn to me when I was pretty new to the game. And I was like, this model is freaking insane. In 8th edition, she could teleport in either player's turns. She couldn't charge after that. But I wanted to build a whole list around, playing her in transports and like denying your consolidation onto objectives or denying your ability to tag me. So for me, new to the game, I was like, this is so cool. And so I missed out on playing them in 9th edition. And I didn't want to play them at the start of this edition because they were just too silly. Like it just didn't seem fun. So yeah, I've been exploring Ynnari a bit. And yeah, they're really good. It feels very T-Suns like, and just the amount of stuff you can do if you see it ahead of time. And yeah, I'm not gonna like defend it. It's pretty freaking silly. But like we can't just ignore it. It's out there. We gotta know how to play against it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Glad to see you embracing your role as dude who plays the broken thing at the highest possible level and beats the snot out of people. You got to have it on the team if you want to win, and that's why our teams tend to win. We got the people for it. So good stuff for you, man. Glad to see that going around. Hell yeah, dude. Sweet. All right, and then also it's going on. Lucas said recently, like these. It's crazy to me that these books are just like now officially out because of the nonsense cycles that we get with Guard and the FOMO box, especially. Like we've had their points for so long. Because in my mind, both of these armors have been out for like a month and a half. But I'm excited to see what y'all can do with them in the real world or whatever now that they're out and around.
There was some very strange. Oh, I'm sorry. If there's a question, we should do that first.
I was going to say, Paul, I can't justify the nerfs to demons in the Emperor's Children book, partially because I haven't read it, and partially because I don't think we've seen quite what that book can do borne out just yet. From what I've heard, if those nerfs end up propagating back to regular demons, that's probably pretty uncalled for. I don't think that Legion of Excess needs those kind of nerfs. But we'll see how things shake out there. Come back in 2 weeks, and we'll see how they play. Sorry, Lucas, you had someone else to go?
Yeah, more so just like it was a very funny period in our little chat where like you were playing so fiercely and fastly against the Eldar and Guard that had just come out, and you had so many games against them and like wrapping them around your head. But meanwhile, we were stuck in the past of like the ancient Guard and Eldar, and our Scions were still rerolling to hit, and people were only playing like combined arms and Bridgehead. Well, I guess people are only playing Bridgehead now, but still just very funny. And like Jeremiah's Eldar list with like Avatar Pain and Wraith Knight.
Yeah, and 2 foot farseers. Like I played into that in the practice GT the week before, or 2 weeks, or the month before. Yeah, a month ago. I played into Jeremiah's, Wraith Knight list, and I was like, God, I freaking hate Fate dice. This is so infuriating. Every time I'm like, I'm so glad these are going away. And now I'm playing into the new stuff, and I'm like, all right, well, this is still hurting.
Fate dice weren't so bad.
It's a little different. No,
Also, wait, hold on. There are still Fate dice.
You mean Aspect Shrine tokens, dude?
Oh yeah, Aspect Shrine tokens. Yeah, Shrine tokens are silly.
I
Anyway.
keep forgetting those because on TTS, like, okay, sorry, in my first 2 games, I keep forgetting them because it's really annoying moving a token around following your unit in TTS or whatever. So I just instantly went and made cards. I was like, there's no way I'm keeping track of this little 12 millimeter base. I'm gonna just slap a giant card that's colorful down next to it, and I'll be like, we're flipping that 6 to wound, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. The one that killed me in terms of the you guys living in the past thing was when, I don't remember who was posting their hobby stuff, but Tanner was like, wait, Guard have flamer heavy weapon teams now? What?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was like, the past month of my life has been, Jesus Christ, Krieg heavy weapon teams are the dumbest thing ever. How do I deal with this stupid unit? And the blissful ignorance of not even knowing that they exist. Ugh.
Yeah. Max showed up with what was it, a bunch of printed Medusas, I think Colby, not Medusas, Cyclopses.
Cyclops.
There we go.
Yeah.
And Colby had printed us some for him, and I'm like, why are you getting printed Cyclopses? Shouldn't those be legended? And Max is like, no, dude, they're still around and they're freaking insane. I'm like, everyone thought those things were gone. Everyone at the tournament, at our team's event had also been playing in the past and being like, we're not going to really look at the new rules. Yeah. Everyone talked to Max. They're like, aren't those legended? And Max is like, you'd think, dude. But actually, here comes Smite Car. Let's go, dude.
Rock and roll, dude. Awesome. All right, sweet. Okay. Oh, man. I should probably dig deep into Brood Brothers. There's probably something there that people haven't found yet.
Oh, no,
That's
dude.
my kind of nonsense.
Tanner
Don't
finally
tell
got
Tanner.
to you.
No.
Okay. I enjoy Final Day too much. It's good fun. Someone needs to play Host of Ascension at some point. So, anyway, lots of cool options. Let's talk about Pyra. As exciting as a lot of this stuff is. If you want to keep this conversation or other conversations going, by the way, feel free to head down to the description, check out the link to our Patreon, where you can spend $5 a month to join our Discord server, where we are all talking about this kind of nonsense 24/7. If you've got more questions about anything we talk about here or otherwise, feel free to at people there. Anyway, let's move over here into the future, into Pyra, into what the hell has actually been going on here. For those of y'all who live under a relative rock in the Stat Check universe, because I know Anthony hasn't shut up about it for the last 6 weeks, Pyra is an international teams event. It's held in Poland. It's run between basically a bunch of the top teams from WTC last year, many of whom used it as a testing ground both for new lists and also for new players. It's considered to be a very rigorous, highly competitive event, but it's also very chill and laid back. A bunch of really good players run into each other. You will play against a lot of WTC caliber and previous WTC players, but unlike WTC, there is no pod phase. There's no tier 3. This is just basically just tier 1 nations, other than the Netherlands, I think, are tier 2. So you kind of hit the ground running. You just go from there. So we had our work cut out for us there, and I had the opportunity to bring something a little bit different. If you've been following the show for a while, you probably know that I am usually all about bugs. I've been playing a lot of Final Day. I've been playing a lot of Vanguard Nids and whatnot, which are both a ton of fun. But for this event, I ended up pivoting and shifting gears pretty hard into Adeptus Mechanicus. This is for a number of reasons. partly for filling a bit of a void in the team knowledge. We don't have a ton of Admech know-how since Richard Siegler stepped back from the team a couple of years ago. Last year, basically no one on the team was playing any Admech at all, and it got brought by a bunch of teams, so we definitely need to make sure that we have coverage for it, both for ourselves and for practice. It was also partially because the armies that I would usually play are not available to me. I got slotted into Pyra a little bit late. I was initially going to be on the Home Nations team with Lucas, but we had some things get moved around, and I had to jump over. I was going to coach Pyra, but then I was playing Pyra. And Sam Pope is also coming to Pyra. He famously is a Tyrannid mastermind, so he's going to be playing Bugs, which means I can't play Vanguard and I can't play Final Day. So unless I want to learn Mono GSC, definitely made sense to keep going on the Admech. And then also I'm playing Admech because it fits in our comp really well. And I'll talk about why that is in a second here. But that's what we're doing. Going into the event, I've had a couple different variations of how I like playing Admech. For a while, I was playing this Halo Screed Super Friends build that I talked about on the show a month or two ago, where I was running a bunch of Halo Screed nonsense and then like 2 Immolators full of Battle Sisters and 3 Armature Helverins, and then 3 Scorpius Disintegrators, and just shooting people off the table. That build is still really good. No one else is playing it. Just saying, it's out there. It's still a really good build. They took away the ability for Halo Screed to buff allies, but even so, the army just has the right synergies, and the anti-fly 2-up is just a really nice thing to have. I think that especially if Fulgrim starts poking his head around, that might be a nice piece for that matchup. And also just piles of 3 damage are really great into things like CSM. You're not likely to one-shot Wave Serpents with it, but you will keep Wave Serpents honest if you point enough Helverins at them, which can be a really nice thing to have. So I think that list still has some value to it, but I played that list into Release Eldar. I played into Quint Johnson, and he spanked me pretty hard. I guess I pivoted over to Skitarii Hunter Cohort a little earlier than that, basically just to try it. I liked it a lot. It's a better detachment. And I was playing a mixed build, living mostly in Protector Doctrine. That's what I often call defense, where you're shooting harder, doing a lot of the skirmish stuff, a lot like what Siegler took to Worlds this past year. And then I got to play that into Eldar and found that it was terrible. It still had good play into Guard, but it just didn't have the juice into Eldar because you can't one-tap a Wave Serpent with it. And a lot of the shooting pieces are very vulnerable to Fire Dragons. There's just not quite enough bodies or enough of anti-infantry shooting to get the job done. It's not quite fast enough, right, to deal with the Elves. So I kind of went back to the drawing board and said, I have the tools here to deal with Elves. I have the tool here to deal with Guard. Let's try to write a list that specifically is designed to hard counter those 2 builds, because that's the cream of the crop right now. And the US pairing strategy often revolves around having a lot of really great pins. So if I can know those 2 matchups inside and out, do really well at them, that's a valuable asset. And that'll let me utilize an army that is not quite as well known on the scene for a really particular purpose here. So let's run through. Oh, yeah, Lucas?
Yeah, so I know, just to quickly kind of like set some groundwork here, I know a lot of people aren't very familiar with Admech. It's one of the, especially maybe in our region in particular, but it's just one of the less played armies. When you say like living in the defense doctrine and living in the offense doctrine, can we run through what all of those give you, just so that we have context for when you go through the list?
Yeah, so rules for Admech. The doctrines or doctrina or whatever the hell they're called is the army rule. So every detachment has these. They are technically called Conqueror and Protector. I call them offense and defense because it's a little bit clearer to my opponents that way. When you're on defense in Protector Doctrine, your entire army is +1 ballistic skill. All of your guns have heavy, and everyone is -1 to be hit in melee while they are within 6 inches of a battle line unit. Admech love to be within 6 inches of battle line, and we love to have hoops to jump through for things. So that's all of those buffs on all of your units all of the time. Or if your army is on offense in Conqueror Doctrina, you are army-wide assault instead of heavy, +1 weapon skill instead of +1 ballistic skill, and while within 6 of battle line, you are +1 AP in both shooting and melee. And every battle round, at the start of the battle round, you pick one of those to be in. You will be in that one for the battle round. It's just a switch. It goes back and forth. You can be in the same one all game. You get one every turn. Nothing crazy like that. It's kind of like the Librarius detachment, I think, for Space Marines. Anyway, so there's that. And then detachment rules wise, for being Skitarii Hunter cohort, all of my infantry and mounted, but really relevant here, infantry are stealth, other than the tech priest, other than the techno-archaeologists, because they worship the wrong god. They're cult mechanicum, not Skitarii. And then in addition to that, all of my Sicarians, which in this case is infiltrators and could be rust stalkers, will get cover outside of 12. The detachment has 6 stratagems, like most of them do: 2 offense, 2 defense, 2 mobility. The offense strats are 1 CP, a unit with no friends within 6 of them, an enemy unit. I can be +1 to wound against them if they have no friends within 6 for 1 CP, in shooting only. For 2 CP, start of the shooting or fight phase, 2 of my units can gang up, and if they put all of their attacks into one particular enemy unit, they're all +1 AP against it. I never use this stratagem because it is 2 CP, and this army is wildly CP hungry, but it's a nice thing to have in your back pocket. On defense, our 2 strats are reactive Lone Up 18, Mark and Nurgle, you've seen it before, and then reactive 5-up Feel No Pain for anyone on a 50mm base. So that means the Taraxi of either variety and the Sicarians can both use that. 5-up Feel No Pain reactive in either phase. And the 2 mobility stratagems, one of them is 1 CP uppy downy, any infantry unit, or 2 infantry units if they're Sicarians, which again just means the infiltrators today. And then advance in charge for any unit. You can advance in charge the vehicles, which is super cool. Didn't have a good chance to do that in this particular event, but in general, that's kind of a fun thing. So this list, I'll go ahead and pull it up here so we can share screen. It is designed very specifically for teams with playing against Guard and Eldar in mind. I very specifically will talk about a lot of matchups and matrices and whatnot, and in trying not to play against power armor where possible, especially not Ultramarines. Like Double Oath will just rip this thing to pieces, and I'm trying to avoid vehicle spams at all costs because I do not have any anti-tank essentially. We can jail vehicle heavy lists if necessary. So something like a Death Guard without Mortarion, for example, I'd have no problem playing against. I don't know about Chaos Knights, seems pretty sketchy, or like a CSM vehicle heavy list would also be just fine because we can just stand in front of them. But anything that's going to require multiple vehicles is just not happening. So the list itself, it is entitled Do Not Pass Go, Do Not Collect $200 because it is in many ways a jail list. But you'll see there's a little bit more to it than that. Characters-wise, we've got 3 marshals. They give their units full rerolls to hit. 2 of them have enhancements. One of them is a Redeploy 3 enhancement. It's called Veiled Hunter. And the other is the Battlesphere Uplink, which gives his unit Fire and Fade at all times. This is the most important enhancement. The entire army operates around this squad of dudes that can Fire and Fade every turn, getting in and out of a transport. And then we've got 2 Techno-Archaeologists. These are 45-point characters that give no deep strike hit within 12. Fantastic aura for this little model. They're great on their own as solo pieces. They're great attached to units for protection. They also give a unit they join +1 OC, which can be really nice if you want to have a squad of rangers in the backfield that's worried about warp spiders jumping into your backfield, or something coming in while you're on defense. You can live through the -1 and with the -1 to hit, and then you can be really good OC to survive even if you can't kill much in melee. So Techno-Archaeologists are great. As far as battle line is concerned, we got 1 unit of 10 Rangers and 4 units of 10 Vanguard. All these units are the same in loadout wise. They've got all the special weapons. That's a plasma, an arc weapon, and a transuranic arquebus, and then a bunch of either radium carbines for the Vanguard, or in the case of the battle of the Rangers, galvanic rifles. Vanguard are fantastic. They're one of the best units in the game, frankly. They have a 3-inch aura of -1 OC. Which means they're incredibly good at denying primary and also not getting their own primary denied. Do all sorts of nonsense with that. They have anti-infantry 4-up shooting, which is solid, and just buckets of it. So with the rerolls from some of these characters, they just start adding up damage real quick. We have 3 Scorpius Dune Riders. In general, we want 3 of our 4 squads of Vanguard to be in these Dune Riders. The ones with the Marshals, so they can get full rolls to hit, and then the Dune Riders, if they hit someone, can get full rolls to wound. Dune Riders also have an absurd amount of anti-infantry firepower themselves. They are 9 shots, rapid fire 9 with 36-inch range. So within 18 inches, they have 18 shots, hitting possibly on 3s or 2s even, and they're sustained, and they're twin links, just piles and piles of shots. And then we get to the fun stuff, the Taraxi. We've got 10, 10, 5 Skystalkers. These units have buckets of dice. The 10-man squads have 59 strength 3 shots. And every time they fire and fade. So they either fire and fade 6, or if they can end that fire and fade, move wholly within 12 of battle line and fire and fade 12, which is just a wild amount of mobility. For a unit when, again, my army has army-wide assault pretty often. So you can go from one side of the board 12 plus d6 plus another 12 and just zip super far just to get over to where some battle line are, which is fantastic. So that's them. And then we got sterilizers, 10, 5, 5. These are the fire bats with the flamers. They reroll ones to hit against units on objectives, or full rerolls to wound against units on objectives if they're within 6 of battle line. So they really lay down the hurt. They're a really great skirmishing unit. They're okay in combat. They're strength 4, whereas the Skystalkers are only strength 3, which is kind of cute. So I really like them to be advanced and charging, going into places, beating people up. They're only 80 points, so I don't mind doing a couple actions with them here and there. They're great primary to know. They're great move blocking. They're just overall a really versatile unit that I like quite a lot. I like both of these units a ton. And I am currently taking 10, 20, 25, 30, 40, 45 of these bats, which is a ton. I think once you're in that ballpark, exactly how you want to break it down is kind of up to you. I could see an argument for taking a full 30 sterilizers and just 15 Skystalkers. I really like the 10-man Skystalkers because that whole unit getting to fire and fade really far can really mess with board control. They abuse the 5-up Feel No Pain really well. But, both great units. Like them a lot. Infiltrators wise, we got 10, 5, 5 of them. They infiltrate as the name implies, and they have probably one of the most important rules in the army, which is at the start of the fight phase, every unit with an engagement range of infiltrators takes a battle shock, and they also have a 6-inch aura, which obviously will hit anyone in engagement range with them, of -1 leadership. If the infiltrators are within 6 of battle line, it goes up to -2 leadership. So if you charge into them, or they heroic into you, or for some reason at the start of the fight phase we're touching bases, you're taking battle shock often at -2, which can really shut down on either offensive or defensive stratagems, and more importantly, can really prevent primary denial, right? A very common theme is to have a unit on an objective and have infiltrators behind it. So if someone charges in, the infiltrators then heroic, take the OC away from that unit by battle shocking it, and then between the infiltrators and the unit that got charged, maybe you pop a 5-up Feel No Pain. We hold out. Not everybody dies, and even one model left is still holding the primary on my turn. Combines really well also with the -1 OC. People who get around being battle shocked by being +1 OC. Oh, the -1 actually puts you back down to 0. Or if they, can also just give you stacking ways to modify OC. It's just a lot of nonsense. They're also pretty darn good at killing squishy things. Each dude has 5 strength 3 shots and 3 strength 6 attacks that are sustained 2. So they can really put a hurt down on guard or Eldar infantry real effectively. And again, they have access to that Feel No Pain strat. So this 10-man over here, for example, can really be an anvil. They can take a whole bunch of damage. And then last but not least, we got Draxus. She's hanging out in the back here. She is fantastic into elves. She is solid, fantastic into guard, because she can put up the veil to be 18-inch loan up for her unit. So I have 2 different units that can be 18-inch loan up, her and then someone else with a stratagem. In a world full of mortars, that's a really good thing to be. Another long-range firepower, especially because this army is going after things that like to defend, like Bridgehead Guard. I'm often going to be on a light table, having an 18-inch loan up unit that can just hold my objective as long as I can move block other things. Really great thing to have. And then, she slaughters elves, she slaughters orcs, just shoots real hard herself, takes great advantage of firing deck. And because she's joining a unit with the right rules, she'll pick up the +1 AP if I'm on offense, and then also the ignores cover from the Omnispecs in a Vanguard unit. So suddenly her shooting is a lot more effective than it would be otherwise. She can pick up the reroll to wounds if she gets out of a boat that fires at something. Like, she shoots way harder in this army than she does in something like Custodes. Even though she doesn't get access to the double tap, she's a great piece. So big fan of her. That's the list. Totals again, we have 45 bats, 20 Isakarians, 50 regular infantry, and a pile of characters with 3 boats. It's a full-on horde of dudes, 100 and some odd models, and they're all stealth, and they all have 5-up invulns, so it's a lot. All right, I said a lot of words there. I assume you guys have some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. My first one is a simple one. Is there any way to double join Draxus with a Marshal?
There isn't. I wish there were so
Oh.
badly. Oh man, it'd be so good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not. Yeah, there is no double joining an Admech that I know of at all.
I think you can.
Yeah, I
have,
don't.
like, two of those weird Castellan guys leading one.
Oh,
Castellan
sorry.
squad.
You can have three. You can have a full. You can have
That's
all
about
full three of your stupid
Yeah, 'cause you get to play with your
cybernetica
boss.
data smiths. Yeah, if you want them to all join your Castellans or Castellans or whatever for some reason. But
Yeah,
All right, so
No.
no, there's no double joining in Admech.
exactly,
yeah. 'Cause
it's-
if Draxus
I'm
was in that Fire and Fade brick, dude.
bro. That would be broken as hell. Yeah,
Jeez.
he
Okay.
shoots wildly hard. But yeah,
She does. Okay, so I'm guessing your standard setup then is your Rangers screen your backfield, and then you have 4 squads of Vanguard doing Vanguard-related things, 3 with Marshals and 1 with Draxus.
yeah, exactly. Often I'll have one of the techno-archaeologists join that squad in the backfield if either there's indirect that's going to go after them, or if there's if I want the OC. But otherwise, yeah, a techno-archaeologist, because the Vanguard also scout and sticky, so often they will want to go, or not Vanguard, sorry, the Rangers scout and sticky. So a common setup that you'll see is where, like, especially on WTC boards where this happens a lot, I will sticky my home field and then just immediately abandon it, having positioned the techno-archaeologist on his own in the backfield such that he can't be seen, and his 12-inch covers my back corner and the entirety of the objective, so no one can deep strike onto it. And then the Rangers just go off and do nonsense, go sticky other objectives or go screen things or whatnot. But yeah,
Sure.
the 4 squads of Vanguard start out and about. The Fire and Fade squad always starts in a boat, and then a regular squad of the Marshal starts in a boat. Draxus starts on foot, and then the squad with redeploy. I've been playing it that guy has to start on the table. Some people have told me that he doesn't. It doesn't matter to me. They start on the board right behind a boat, and the other techno-archaeologist starts in that boat on his own, so the boat doesn't explode. You could start Draxus in that boat, but she doesn't get to do her command phase 18-inch loan-up thing that way, so I default to not. Especially because that boat often then has the guy who will then jump out and go do air raids and out cleanse, kind of top 1 sort of things, without having to sacrifice a real unit. It's real nice for that. Love these cute little pieces. We're talking again. Everything with this army is going to be very matchup dependent because it's got a ton of little tech pieces that can do a lot of different jobs, but that's generally the approach. Is starting that setup on the board, and then off the board we'll start the 10 sterilizers. That's the fire bats. And then a 10 Sky Stalker and a 5 Sky Stalker as well is kind of my default. Just to have a lot of ingress pieces, a lot of fire and fade pieces people have to respect, both for move blocking and primary denial.
So it seems like very often the Sky Stalkers and the Sterilizers can do their job just coming in at a deep strike with the 12-inch flamers, and because you want to be near battle line, and then also with the fire and fade. How often did you find yourself ingressing these squads?
Every single game. The sterilizers ingress every single game because they want to get in, and they want to do one of 2 things. They either want to get in, go far, flame something, advance and charge something else, and tag it or do a little bit of damage, or they want to go as deep as possible, flame something, and then stare at 4 other things with their flamers, asking who wants to move. And you just don't get that Overwatch. Or the third option is they ingress Overwatch and obliterate something.
That's
I had I had a game against we had a scrim game I was playing against Lennon on his Ultramarines, which is a terrible matchup, but he had a squad of Outriders blitz around a corner that were just going to eviscerate my expansion and take away a whole bunch of primary from me, and I was like, nope, you're on an objective, you're all dead. I think one of them like limped out with a wound or 2, but it got the job done. And what's great is because I have the uppy downy stratagem, it's like the old GSC days, except it costs the full 3 CP to ingress, Overwatch, and then pick back up all in one turn, which is my favorite combination of things to do.
Is there
But,
what kind of ways are there to get
these
CP in this
cheats and
attachment?
leaves.
Do you have like the 5-up refunding?
I have 5-up refunding on the 3 boat, and
Yeah.
that's
So none.
it.
Got it.
Yep.
You can take it on the Vanguard and the Rangers, but the only way is to take an upgrade that replaces the Ignores Cover upgrade. So,
Okay,
like,
one or the other.
Yeah,
And they never get stratagems anyway. The stratagems are always put on the infiltrators and the Taraxi, right? All the advance and charge, all the feel no pain, all the uppy downy. It's all about them.
Yep.
So like, yeah, okay, like the benefits of the data tethers being what they are is like really good for if you for some reason feel the need to use the +1 AP strat. It's often really just you need it on one unit, like you need it on a unit of Vanguard or a unit of, or maybe the sterilizers to be like sterilizers and the boat, and then on a 5-up I get it back from the boat. It's okay. But like, yeah, there is very little access to CP regen in this list, and it is a big problem. If there is like an Imperial agent that helps with CP generation that I don't know about, please tell me, because I will take them so fast. I am deeply thirsty for some damn command points. We are just trying and failing. Admech, like if you want GW, if you're listening, if you want to give me an Admech kill team that has the 4-up get a CP for holding an objective, like I don't need anything else. Like that's all this army needs. I don't need any crazy silly you can't use stratagems. I don't need any crazy nonsense rules. Just like 4-up CP. That'd be awesome.
So this list it's very obviously a complete skew, right? Like the most anti-tank thing you have is like 5 arc rifles that do D3 mortals or whatever, right? Like can you talk a little bit about the thought process of the list design? How did you end up with this much anti-infantry and so little anti-tank when something like a disintegrator is sitting right there and does a good job of blasting tanks?
Disintegrators are fantastic. I want to be super clear here. Last chickens are terrible. Stop playing them, please, for the love of God. That data sheet is bad. I swear this entire like community is like has no one propping it up, and like whoever keeps thinking these last chickens are good, just stop taking them. Disintegrators are better. Like I've done the math. You can scroll up in the Admech channel. I've talked about the math. Disintegrators are just objectively better. The benefit of the chickens is that they get to benefit from some of the detachment rules, namely stealth. And they have awkward, like they're easier to kill. If your disintegrators are getting killed, you're playing the game wrong. Like I do not care. They're so much better. The anti-infantry out of the disintegrators, they have the same gun basically as the boats, except that it's
not an array, right?
It's better, yeah, because it's 3 little guns. Shots. You can be like 6 shots, 6 shots, 6 shots. It's so good. But yeah, absolutely love disintegrators. Don't get me wrong. Very good gun. The problem with the disintegrators is that they really force you to play on defense. In my mind, the disintegrators and the sterilizers are kind of mutually exclusive. Let me take down this screen share for now because I'm not pointing at it. You really don't want both of them at once. Because disintegrators hitting on 4s into non-vehicles feels awful. They feel terribly inefficient. But sterilizers not being able to advance and shoot feels even worse. Like I hate both of those things. So I basically had to take them out because they don't do anything into Eldar at the end of the day. They are too much of a nickel and dime shooting unit that allows triggering of, is it fade back is the one where after I shoot you get to move?
Correcto.
And yeah, so it's just too big of an issue, right? Like conceptually, you're like, this is 6 shots, half of which wound on, well, they wound on 4s because the stupid Eldar Serpent Shield. So like, it's just very unreliable at doing damage. It seems like it should kill a Wave Serpent. It does. If they reliably killed a Wave Serpent, I would still be taking them, even if it meant I had to play on defense. But they don't. I've been spurned by that too many times. So that's a big part of it. And then it also just really messes up the bridgehead situation, right? Because in the bridgehead, no, it's not trick. It's just about elves. Because in the bridgehead, you can play the sit back game, and they don't have any actually long range anti tank. All the bridgehead anti tank is really tight. So as long as your disintegrator shoot back, they might even be better at the bridgehead. But it's elves. It's mostly about elves. The list needs to beat elves, and the taking more tanks into armies that have fire dragons is a bad idea. In the Eldar matchup, I generally want most of my boats to kind of die early on, so that the fire dragons just become absolute waste of space, useless unit, because a lot of Eldar players have these play patterns built up where they really care about protecting the fire dragons because they're incredibly valuable. And that means that they end up throwing away their Banshees and their Scorpions a lot earlier. If we cycle through the Banshees and the Scorpions and you're trying to play this game with Fire Dragons and Warp Spiders, and I'm playing this game with Vanguard and Sterilizers, you're losing. It's just not going to go well for you. So that's a big part of what's happening there. And yeah, it basically comes down to the Disintegrators are there to crack power armor. And if I just decide that I'm not going to play against power armor, I don't need them, and they're just much less efficient at what the army's actually really good at, which is jamming absurd amounts of bodies forward that have slightly more durability than they should for their points with a lot of tricks. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on the no tanks angle. If you're playing this in singles, play the tanks probably. I don't know. Maybe you're just smart enough you don't need to, and no one in your area plays Gilliman. Cool, that's great. You should play this. It'll be fun. Honestly, I might take the list as is to a singles event just because I am so worried about elves and guard at the top of the meta. You know, it used to be, I think people would say a lot, tech for the best, outplay the rest. Yeah, if your meta feels all elves and guard right now, like this is there to rip people apart.
Yeah, especially I feel like if you're thinking about running a list like this on GW terrain in particular, right? Like it's worth bearing in mind that you've done all of your prep and practice on WTC terrain, where it might be much easier to hide 110 bodies. As someone who's played a lot of Horde on GW terrain, it's not easy to hide 110 bodies. So it might be worth cutting, 20 to 25 of those and slotting a couple tanks in.
The tanks also on GW, right? You have a lot more of those like cross-board firing lanes. So you can just like have your tank deployed way back, poke out, and just be like, I kill you.
Yeah, Faramite being actually straight up 48-inch range is massive on those tables. You can just control so many lanes.
Yeah, I was playing round one against Admech at the team event. And it was like, oh, these tanks kind of can shoot anywhere. I need to like be careful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like Lucas said, he was running the issue of like, my Flappy Birds are on these big bases and they take up lots of space. So.
Yeah, Taraxi are a massive pain in the tail to play. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the actual games, but yeah.
I was going to ask one thing about Rust Stalkers as well. And this might be because like you're playing like more points denial and less damage, but I know you were testing Rust Stalkers for a while.
Yeah.
Why no Rust Stalkers?
They were the last thing that got cut. The 10-man, for a while I was playing 2x5 infiltrators, 2x5 Rust Stalkers. Instead, I played a 10-man. I played two 10-mans in Halo's Creed for a while because man is that unit fun. They go so fast and they go boom 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 boom. And the unit, all the precision is super cool. It makes the orcs matchup a lot better. Is the thing that I neglected to think about when I took them out, is how much worse the orcs matchup gets when you can't just ace a big mech with the shock attack gun out of nowhere from behind a wall. Just he's gone. They're really great at tagging things. They're really good at initiating. Honestly, I'm not convinced that version of the list is worse. I think that the 10-man infiltrator unit just like doesn't suit the way that I want to play the army. And some of the struggles that I ran into was partly because I wasn't using that unit as aggressively as I needed to. 5-man Rusties are great. They're a lot of fun to get the party started. I will say, and I'll die on this hill, I really prefer them with the I always forget the names of their weapons. Not the blades, the cord claws or the razors. Rust Stalkers. Yeah, everyone takes them with the blades because they're dev wounds and they think that they're going to roll a lot of sixes. I played that unit with blades for a long time. It never happened.
Can you
by contrast,
in the two?
Yeah, totally. So the blades are, and again, these will both be weapon skill 4 base, but weapon skill 3 if you're on offense. The blades are 5 attacks at 5/1/1 dev precision.
Okay.
The Razor and Cord Claw is only 4 attacks at 5/2/1 precision, anti-infantry 3+. So you're either 5 attacks with AP1 and dev, or your 4 attacks with AP2 and anti-infantry 3 up. Strength 5 either way.
4 attacks is way better.
Yeah. The dev is really cute. I understand the desire for it, but AP 1 to 2 is a massive breakpoint, and so is AP 2 to 3, but really it's about AP 1 to 2. And everyone keeps telling me, yeah, but like if you're within 6 of battle line, you're AP 2. If your Rust Stalkers are within 6 of battle line, you're doing something wrong, or your opponent is doing something wrong, right? This is a unit whose shtick is get out 3, move 8, advance at +2, charge at +2. They're trying to yeet. Your battle line are not that fast. And if you're stringing all the way back to get to the battle line, you're missing out on so many attacks. So just being AP2 all the time is great. And there's plenty of T5 and T6 in the meta right now as far as infantry are concerned. Whether you're going into orcs or you're going into possessed or you're going into
the Calgar unit that you'd otherwise wound on force. Exactly.
The Calgar unit, the company heroes, or if you're going into Ogren, just a lot of things. I'd rather just wound on 3s. Don't have to worry about it. Don't have to worry about -1 of wounds. Don't have to worry about bonuses to toughness. Like, it's just wounds on 3s. Makes them very, very predictable, as opposed to Dev, which makes you incredibly, incredibly unpredictable. I'd rather they just get in there, mark a character, and move on with our lives. Also Wraith. Oh my gosh. This unit is so disgusting into Wraith when you're like, anti-infantry 3 up, your Technomancer's dead. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. I may go back to them. This 10-man Infiltrator brick is really cute, and it does a couple of things really well. It makes the Legion of Excess matchup, for example, way better. But I could probably get by with the 5s just fine, and I miss this unit. They're a lot of fun. So don't think that I don't like them. Don't think they're not worth taking. They didn't end up in this particular list, but that's not because I have a vendetta against them. Ziegler was pretty adamant about the 10-man Infiltrator unit, and I see why they do a thing really well. But I think in the context of what the list is trying to do, the Rust Stalkers might have been better.
Okay. And then one last thing. How's your back feeling after that weekend, dude? How's moving the lists around in the real world?
Yeah, so this was the downside. I don't own this army. I technically own 30 new in-box Skitarii that I think are in Lucas's room somewhere, which is great. Yeah, they're downstairs. Awesome. I don't have any models here in Spain. I've just been playing a ton of TTS, and transitioning this army to the real world is a lot. The back pain doesn't kill me. Like, I'm very used to playing hordes. I'm very used to rolling a lot of dice. But Taraxi in particular operate fundamentally differently in person than they do on TTS, both in terms of like what you can very easily and quickly measure and pre-measure and move, and then also just in terms of like where things actually fit as you're sitting there debating how much of your clock to spend interweaving their wings by putting the correct models next to each other, so that they can all line up as closely together as they need to be. Just a massive pain in the ass, costs incredible amount of clock time, and just like becomes frustrating. And you find yourself like making worse decisions based on, I won't have to be as finicky about these guys right now, which is not where you want to be ever. These are solvable problems, right? And when I model my Taraxi, I will solve these problems. It's not crazy complicated. You need to weight your bases, double washers on everybody. They're nice and bottom heavy, and you need to mount them with metal flight stands. If you want to have cool rocks built up that then attached to with a piece of metal, great. If you want just a metal fucking rod that connects them to the base, that's great. But this garbage plastic new age nonsense that's a very fragile connection point that flexes, that's the worst part. They make it less fragile because it bends, which is a smart idea from an engineering perspective. Way fewer of these things break than they would if they were on the old clear plastic rods. But that flex makes them fall over all the time. It makes them really awkward to maneuver, right? It's just unnecessary. Just metal rod. It'll be fine. So if I make those changes, the army will just operate a lot easier. The other thing that kills me is that because these aren't my models, they're not as heavily color-coded as all of my models are when I play 40K. I'm very big into accessibility when it comes to paint schemes and stuff. If you're going to have a unit of 10 dudes where 2 of them have 2 different special weapons, and there's a sergeant with a different weapon, and there's a guy with a special war gear option, in this case an Omnispec to recover, those guys need to be like very obviously different, and they just weren't because that's not how everyone paints their models. But I was very often like, oh my gosh, where the hell is my arc rifle? Where is my plasma rifle? Like, who the hell has an Omnispecs in this unit? And that makes specific decision-making points, like casually pulling, way more challenging. So that was all a massive pain in the butt. But we we got through it eventually, and by round 5, I had it pretty much unlocked. But rounds 1 and 2, it was pretty sketchy trying to figure out how to play this army in the real world.
Yeah, well, good on you for doing it, because I know you haven't like played real world games in probably like 6 to 8 months at this point, barely 6 months. But yeah, it's very challenging. So good on you for figuring it out.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, sweet. So that's the list. That's how it operates. Without further ado, should we get into some rounds and talk about how the event actually happened?
Sure,
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, so I'm not going to put up full matrices here because I don't have everyone's permission for that. What I will do is I'll put up the like results where we talk about the pairings process, how the list operates in pairings, and how some of the actual matchups go, and then you can see how some of the rounds went against predictions. So this is round 1. We play into England, which is a good time. And as you can see, based on our predictions there, this pairing went pretty darn well. And then as you can see in our results tab, some of the games don't quite live up to the hype. Some of them absolutely do. So we first defend guard. They first defend BA. Our guard gets attacked with Yanari and GSC, and he takes the Yanari. Their BA gets attacked by Anthony, as always, our first attacker, and our Eldar. They take Anthony. Anthony gets a 20. Good job, Anthony. Second defender here, you can start to see where the list actually fits into things, right? They second defend with their GSC here. This is run by Danny Porter. And immediately we get to pin this, right? The GSC are a pile of T3 bodies that want nothing to do with Admech, and they're a pile of Leadership 7 drop shooting, which wants nothing to do with Vanguard NIDs. So Sam and I very often go out to pin things like this. And because as that's the case, he knows that he has absolutely no play into me. He thinks he has a little bit more play into Sam. He's wrong. He gets 20'd by Sam, but we get to wield the Admech like a cudgel to beat people into taking otherwise really bad matchups for them. The same thing happens in the scrum here, where they defend with Bridgehead Guard, and we get to send out myself again and Brian Sipe on his orcs. Obviously, the guard can never play into me, so they have to accept the orcs, and our pairings just get a lot easier. Brian gets an 18 there, right? So multiple of our big wins come about by having the Admech in the comp, even if they're not actually being played in that particular situation there. And like that's part of how skew lists can be really valuable. Even if they're not playing the matchup that they want, they can force other really great matchups as well. I myself end up in the refused tier naturally, playing against the orcs from their side. These were piloted by a gentleman whose name I cannot remember. He was a lovely opponent. Anyway, so I got to play into the English orcs. And this is an interesting talking point here. This is a matchup that I had played a bunch, but both with the Ruststalkers and against some practice partners that maybe weren't as experienced on Tactical Brigade as they needed to be. So I had an overly inflated view of this matchup. I think this is actually pretty drawish. And this game we end up battling out to a 10-10 against the orcs here. This was a really good game here and a good litmus test of what the army's actually capable of. We're playing on Tipping Point, Fog of War, Lynchpin, so a very primary deniable kind of game. This game ends up coming down to one like poor target prioritization move on my part, where I let his 10-man boy squad sit around on his expansion and focus down a squad of Storm Boys, and then tried to nickel and dime the boy squad down, and they ended up just taking much less damage than expected. That boy squad ends up like narrowly holding on to that objective while I deny everything else in front of it for a while. And even though I was able to ingress him with my sterilizers and take his home field away from his grots, being able to hold on to that expansion meant he picked up maybe 6 points more than I would have, or maybe even 11 points more than I would have otherwise liked, which pushes this from a nice Admech win into an Orcs win. Pleasure meeting you as well, Matt from Glasshammer. Was that this guy, or was he, or were you one of the other guys? I'm really bad with names. I'm sorry. But yeah, absolutely pleasure. All the English guys were gentlemen here. This was a good round, and evidently it worked out real well for the Americans. Only one loss here for Jurek into the Yanari. Yanari are freaking crazy. Overall, a solid showing for the Americans.
Fascinating to see some of these trends in the pairings, now that I've done some of this myself. I think this really illustrates one thing, not to like take the spotlight away from the Admech here, but this is really one of the fascinating things that I've noticed about pairings is you don't try to get your wins with your defender, right? Like your defender is just trying to avoid a sketchy situation. You're trying to get your wins by pinning people when you attack. And we can really see that here at the highest level. Like look at all of the English attackers, right? Like they're attacking with tactical orcs twice in a row. That really shows you that that's one of their, like, they're trying to beat people with that list. And then similar with Admech, right? Like there's two matchups that you were teched for and built for. When you see GSD and guard, like we can really browbeat people with Admech with that. So really fascinating to see. Very cool. And I mean, both of those times that you attacked, you forced them into a terrible situation where they got fucking 20'd, right? Very cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Pairings, good time. This is a yeah, absolutely. So that's the English there. Round 2, we end up playing into Poland's B team. This was an interesting round. There's one matchup there that kind of you love to see it in terms of prediction versus results. This time around, they start off with their Death Guard. We start with their Grey Knights. Their Death Guard accept our Guard. That's a very boring 10-10. Ruben, our Grey Knight player, who, big shout out to Ruben Zhao. This was his first European event. He's one of my boys from California who has been kicking ass on the team. He's their Grey Knight player. See him putting a 17 on that Polish bio player, which is awesome. I should mention, sorry, I forgot to mention, this is round 2, which is my worst round, and is a thing that I did not mention during the list construction, is that round 2 is Purge the Foe. My army has a lot of units, and it scores points by throwing all of them away. I do not like Purge the Foe, and this particular comp for the Polish includes it's got Bile CSM, Death Guard, Chaos Knights, Warpbane Grey Knights, and Excess Demons. Just like
Yikes.
lots of armies that do not have a lot of easy kills to give up, who love to slaughter things, and who generally have weaknesses that are just about positioning and primary. No longer an issue. They just get a free 48 primary for showing up. Because they're getting kill, hold, kill more every single turn. So this was one where I needed to be really careful. And you'll notice that I am not getting thrown around a lot early trying to pin people because I am not helpful or useful. I managed to finagle my way into the Excess Demons here, which in general is a fantastic matchup because I stand in front of them and I shoot them like fish in a barrel. But in this particular round, when I'm not getting a primary lead, they're getting a primary lead. It ends up being a pretty drawish matchup. The only way to win this game is if I go first, because then I can properly jail them and hold 3 objectives for 3 turns, and then I can actually keep pace with primary and win on secondary. But he ends up going first. There's not much I can do about that. We hold him to a 9. Very happy with that end score there. There was a chance that we were going to swing it up to a 10. Doesn't end up happening here, but good stuff. Talk through some of the rest of these matchups here. In the second defending slot, we have Nick Fromm, another one of our locals from up here in the Pacific Northwest, who had been kicking a bunch of ass as well. He was our Eldar player this time around. He ends up into Chaos Knights, which ends up really biting him there. I know, Lucas, you've been pretty high on Chaos Knights recently into the meta because they have a lot of play into things like Eldar. So good on their Chaos Knights for doing well there. Meanwhile, Bryant and Sipe got to attack into some Vanguard Ultras and got 11 out of that. Kit Smith Hanna, who I haven't mentioned yet, was our Space Marine player playing Stormlance with the Storm Raven. Kit himself being a very famous Storm Raven player in the Iron Storm days, playing this list kind of spearheaded by Lennon with this Ultramarines Stormlance Storm Raven doing real well. Picking up an 18 against some Warpbane Grey Knights. I got that 9 against the Excess Demons. Anthony ends up being the Forgotten into their Eldar with the very classic predicted red comes back with a 20. You love to see that. That's some classic Anthony shit if I've ever seen it. This matchup, I think, ends up being kind of one of the big talking points of the weekend, from like all perspectives. Was does Bile have play into Eldar? It seems like maybe they do. Some other Bile players were very heavily practiced and teched for this idea, ready to play it a bunch, and they did really well. Anthony just kind of fell into it because someone had to fall on the grenade and found out that it was okay if his opponent made some suboptimal plays, made some mistakes. So curious to see what this looks like in a couple weeks or months in the Matrix, with where these shake out. If maybe the Bile players just need some more practice, they can beat all the elves, or maybe the Eldar players just need to get a little more used to it, or tech a little bit. But Sam Pope with his Vanguard Nids here getting to play into Biosanctic GSC. Not as good of a matchup as the host of Ascension GSC. He walks out with a 13, still a very respectable score, and we beat the snot out of the Polish B team here, 102-58. Overall, a super solid round. I'm going to take down the share a sec just to make sure that I have the thing correct for France, and I do. Yeah, so this is kind of the part in the event where the things start to come a little bit off the rails as we move into the French round. Now, France is the defending WTC champions, so there's that. And they brought a hell of a team here, including several of their returning WTC players. I don't remember the exact number of them, but they were definitely the team to be afraid of. And we managed to, frankly, freaking nail the pairings here. Like, this went about as good as we could have possibly hoped. But unfortunately, a couple of these games end up coming up pretty soft. So we first defend here with Sight, and he gets it's to pick up the Gladius Ultras, which is great. He comes back with a 15. Awesome work on his part with that. They first defend with Demons, and once again, we can see here Admech doing the Admech thing, where now that we're not playing on Purge, that Demon list cannot play against me. I will get a crazy amount of points, which lets Anthony do his favorite thing and first attack and be accepted into the Demons. Puts a 17 on him, just beats him into the ground, which is great. We second defend here with Jurek on the guard, and he accepts Votan, rejecting Necrons, and they second defend with Bile, who take from on Eldar, rejecting Kit Smetana on Marines. And I think we were sending out the Eldar here, thinking that it was a very good matchup. We've got it as a green. Nick, having played it into Anthony, I believe, was very confident, and Anthony, having played it into Nick, was very scared about it. But this Bile player, the French guy, was very practiced, knew exactly what he had to do, and was able to 20-0 our Eldar with Bile in what we thought was a favored matchup. That takes the whole thing and flips it on its head. Really unfortunate spot to be in there, but it really just goes to show how much value you can get out of an information disparity in a matrix there. We thought that was good for us. They knew it was good for them. They ended up being right there, so that's a big deal. Into the scrum here, things get pretty interesting. We end up defending with Kit on his Marines. He accepts the Necron, sending the Inari down. Meanwhile, the Bridgehead defends, and again, here comes me and Sam. And again, they have to take Sam. They can't take me. And Sam gets a 13 there, which means that I fall down into that Yanari, which is the matchup that I wanted. And Ruben, at the end of this, ends up playing his Grey Knights into Death Guard in the... I think the Forgotten and the Refused are mixed up here. I think Typhus may have entered these manually and it wasn't done automatically, because, yeah, we were definitely the Refused. Ruben and the Death Guard are the Forgotten. But anyway. And yeah, this is definitely the round where everything starts to turn south, both for the whole team, but also certainly for me in particular, as Nick is not the only person to have a green come back as a 0 here. This French guy was playing against this guy's Matthew. Excellent player. Very, very strong, but more importantly than just being very good at Warhammer, because everyone here is really good at Warhammer, he took kind of one look at this matchup. This is playing on Take and Hold, 6 objectives, and he grabs a heavy table here, which is a really smart move. In particular, he's grabbing... do I have the table over here? I do not. But he's having table 1, which is the one with the really deep big L's, where they've got the big L and then the crates. You know what I'm talking about, Lucas? right? So you can be really close to your opponent's deployment zone without being visible at all. There's some line in between the two big L's in the center there, but not nearly enough for it to be a problem for small infantry units. So that's going to help him out a lot. And then realizing that like I can just kind of rush him down and kill everything in his army, he basically just asserts that he is going first. He deploys his entire army on the line. He's got his big incubi brick on the line. He's got his banshees on the line. And like, if I go first, he's just going to lose a lot of dudes. But if he goes first, he's going to be able to take up some really aggressive staging positions, which is going to work out really well for him. His Wave Serpent is positioned aggressively, such that if he can roll a 5-up on his Vectored Engine, he can get up to the wall that my Fire and Fade boat is hiding behind and potentially do some damage there, which is spicy. He deploys all of his Scorpions aggressively. He is just going for it. With his Scorpions deployed aggressively, I'm able to deploy my Infiltrators aggressively in response, because I am looking at this and I am like, I need to 20 this man. If I go first here, I am not letting him get away with being this greedy and not getting punished. So I'm like deploying Infiltrators behind his Scorpion so he can't even scout to run away if he wants to come at me, and like we're just ready for it. We're not being overly aggressive in too many places. I'm okay with this deployment here, but unfortunately he does get to go first, so we don't get to go for this full rush down that we were all super excited about. He gets to rush at me. And that does mean that he then hits his 5-up on his Wave Serpent, flings it all the way up to the front, gets his Fire Dragons out on my side of the wall, is barely able to set them up within Melter range, and blows the hell out of my Fire and Fade boat. It's not great. It's not a big deal, though, in theory, because like any boat can be a Fire and Fade boat. The squad just needs to get into it, and he doesn't have anyone else who has line of sight on these guys, so they're going to be totally fine. He does have 2 Reaper launchers, which are going to be in range, but each Reaper launcher on average kills a dude and a half, right? Because I lost 2 dudes to the explosion. So he's only at blast 1. He's got 8 shots. He should get 4 hits. He should get 2 to 3 wounds. I've got a 5-up invuln. He should kill 1 or 2 of them. Like we should be just fine here. But those 2 Reaper launchers pick up the entire squad. Just straight up 8 dudes dead. Yeah, not ideal, and that was a real problem. Simultaneously, he's able to cut some long angles on an Infiltrator squad, picks them up. Both of his Spider units flicker jump. He doesn't lose any Spiders in the flicker to take a really aggressive staging position, which is now not even very easy for me to punish, because I was counting on that squad to be the ones who were punishing it. Yeah, this was horrible. Just a really aggressive stage turn 1, and he's destroyed my most valuable asset immediately. And I failed my personal battle shock on this. This was real sketch. We try to play fairly early positionally. He leaves my 10-man Infiltrator unit alone. Right? He's fully staged up on one side, but my 10-man Infiltrator unit is staged up on the other. He knows that he can't just slam into them, because if he fails his battle shock, he'll be in trouble. He won't be able to make surge moves. I'll be able to do a ton of damage to him. I can pop a Feel No Pain. Like, it's just not going to do that much damage. And he'd end up stuck on my side of the wall. So, like, he can't do that. So they explode out, ready to go after a whole bunch of units on his side. They're going to take out a squad of Scorpions and a squad of Dragons and a squad of Banshees, like, all at once in a really aggressive spot. And they play out really wide. Unfortunately, when I take out a unit in the shooting phase, he's then able to move his Incubi unit reactively, their full 7 or 8 inches with the characters, over toward this unit. And I can only roll so high on my charge. I end up like 5.9 inches away from this Incubi trying to get away from the heroic, but I don't have the CP to reroll the charge, and he's able to heroic in. He only gets like 3 Incubi in. He can't get your brain in, so it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. But those 3 Incubi just kill 7 Infiltrators with the fight first. I'm like, bro, you have 9 attacks. I have a 5-up invuln. What are we doing? He passes his... Yeah.
I realized, funny interaction. You guys both force battle shocks, right, at the start of that?
Yep. We both force battle shocks at -1.
Hilarious.
I fail mine and he passes his. And I'm like, this is Great. So he's able to use his reroll ones, which I thought was greedy as hell, and then he rolled 3 1s out of 9 attacks and rerolled them all into hits, and then a bunch of wounds, and then 7 dead. So that was just like not what I needed to have happen there at all. And at that point, I'm kind of crushed because that unit then just gets to pinball through my entire army. He's very smart about it. He never lets them get caught, flat-footed on an objective, because if they're on an objective, they're dead. The sterilizers will roast that whole unit comfortably. But without rerolls to wound, like he can pop -1 to wound, and I'm just wounding him on 4s. It's just we're not getting enough through to kill the whole unit. And if you don't kill the whole unit, it's either fading back behind a wall, or it's lethal surge fading back into combat, or it's and then it's getting D3+1 dudes back from your brain in a minute. Like it's a disaster. And we lose absolutely everyone here. And man, that unit really allows you to push down. So we end up walking out of that with a big fat donut, which is just disastrous. It's a really bad place to be, and a really unfortunate spot. The entire team ends up feeling pretty bad here. So props to Brian, Anthony, and Sam, who all really delivered here, but everyone else misses Matrix here, and several of us by a pretty wide margin. Ruben gets beat down by the Death Guard pretty hard. I know that guy has been kicking tail. I think he ends up the number 2 finisher overall, the French Death Guard player. Just playing real well. I think he's one of their only prospects they brought on, and he's considered like a big upgrade to have him on the team, which is terrifying because the team was already fantastic. But he did great. I know Kit got absolutely bamboozled by some Necrons here. He also had a similar problem to me with the TTS to real life transition, where he was under the impression on his board choice here on table 3 that his Storm Raven was safe in a certain spot, but DDAs are so tall in person that they could actually see up and over a crate to see the Storm Raven in a way that he didn't understand previously. And suddenly the table goes from very favored to terrible. And the wheels really came off for him on that. So him, me, and Nick just all falling apart this round really sinks the entire round for us, unfortunately. And we end up losing to France 98-62, which was, not great. It's a really hard round.
Yeah, it looks tough, especially like seeing 5 greens and then a lot of them come back. So tough is like
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 1, 2,
There's
3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 or 6 big underperformances, which that could be emotionally a bit of a beatdown.
Yeah, it's one thing when you walk out of pairings and you're like, yeah, this is going to be really tight. You know, we've got this, that, and the other thing. And then, damn, they outplayed us in 2 or 3 spots. A couple of dice didn't break our way, and, you know, we lost a close round. But no, we got everything that we wanted in pairings. In some cases, we were wrong about data. And in some cases, our players just didn't line up. And it was not a great spot to be in. So
It happens, man.
So that's the end of day 1. We end up in not at the best spot, but, you know, if you're going to lose to someone, might as well be to the reigning world champs who are, teaching us some good stuff here.
There was 3 games per day?
3 games day 1, 2 games day 2. It's a 2-day event. But yeah, when I tell you this was an exhausting event, like, yeah. And and it's not WTC where it's full 4 hours, right? It's 3.5-hour rounds with pairings, and like there aren't a bunch of coaches to set up all the tables, so like you just got to move. These were some pretty tight turnarounds, and also like there was no lunch. There was just the second round each day was 4 hours instead of 3.5, and they would bring food to the tables. So like, it's fairly exhausting. But yeah, overall, not a fair performance, but some good learning here. So what goes wrong in this game is that I am not prepared for this situation where a opponent is playing to his outs, where he thinks his outs are winning, right? The games I have played in practice games against elves, a great number of them, including a game that I played in practice against this particular army. The tables that we had been practicing on, the elf players that I've been playing against were convinced they wanted a light board. I basically said, "There's no way you're first defending. Just take a medium board or a heavy board," and they wanted medium because they wanted long firing lanes to maximize Dark Reaper utility here, knowing that I have plenty of dudes to stand behind walls on things. And plenty of things that want to break down the doors. They would rather the objectives be out in the open because they struggle to hold primary. They'd rather get to shoot at me. That makes sense for objectives, but it doesn't make sense for staging, right? The staging piece is on a heavy board, make that incubi unit radically more valuable. Second thing is they were playing for like 6s and 7s because I had been 20ing the elves in practice left and right, and a lot of the elf practice I was getting was people playing very defensively, trying to eke out the points where they could, and then I am just full gassing them all the way over and saying that doesn't work. By contrast, if my opponent adopts this very different posture of realizing that's not going to work and they need to send it, this was like just not a thing that I had gotten reps into. And there's no reason not to, right? Like you should practice the worst case scenario where your opponent sets up with the knowledge that they're going first and then goes first. And then see how bad that is, right? And evaluate your matchup with that in mind and also be ready to play against it with that in mind, right? If things are easier in the event than they were in practice, great. Go get your 20s. Cool, dude. But it's just less productive practice to see what happens when things go well for you than it is to see when things go poorly. And admittedly, like it can be pretty demoralizing, and especially if you don't have a ton of time to practice, right? If you're only going to play each matchup once or twice, by all means, play some more normal balanced games. But I played elves 7 or 8 times. At some point, I should have been repping through what happens in these bad case scenarios. I was focused more on how do I play into this variety of lists? Do these different detachments mess with me? Is the fact that this is not really that big of a deal? It's not, right? They don't have Wraith Lords. That is the thing that makes a big difference in this matchup. Everything else is elves I need to be playing based on worst case scenarios, and that was just not what happened here at all. So helpful learning, both in terms of what I need to practice and also just like what can go wrong in that particular game. But overall, still confident, still a very good matchup. Just really kind of broke down my morale for the day. Cool. And that brings us over here to day 2 into the other really disappointing round of the weekend, to back, which is not great, into Germany. So, once again, starting off with some things that I can bully in pairings. This, I think, is probably like one of the best examples of how useful this army can be in a pairing situation, right? They're first defending with their Wind Rider Elves. This is a matchup that I have practiced that I know is very favorable. They have a lot of damage too. It doesn't matter. I've done the math. If they want to play aggressive, they all die. If they want to play defensive, they all die. It doesn't matter. It's a great matchup for Admech. So I'm able to bully them into taking the Grey Knights. Apparently, they thought the Grey Knights was a good matchup. It's not. Ruben got a 16. I think this is Matthias here, or Matthias. I don't remember how to pronounce his name. The German Eldar player who really loves Wind Rider. He tried to alpha the Grey Knights, which was an interesting tactic. He did kill a bunch of stuff, but then all of the elves died immediately. This army has no combat, and it doesn't have a really good second wind. It kind of just pushes all at once. If you want to play it like that, and it's made of paper. It's just made of paper, so props to Ruben for connecting there correctly. Round 2, they second defend demons, and again, that means that it's going to be me and Anthony, and we do get Anthony into this. Now, unfortunately, Anthony does not have a great round here. He ends up coming back with a 9, which, we're being the only team not playing demons. A lot of other teams are giving a shit for that, saying that we're missing the boat here. We could not get demons to perform well in practice games. They just kept running into problems, whether it was Marines with double oath just pushing right through them, or things like Admech move blocking them really comfortably, or orcs, like just no one was able to get it done. Evidently, they're a good army, and we need to figure out who's going to be playing them in the future, but like, I don't mind it. So there was like a running joke that anyone who loses to demons has to move to Canada, and Anthony and I both got 9s into demons. Now, I feel very justified in getting my 9 because it was Purge the Foe. I don't know what Anthony's problem is. It's probably that it's not actually that crazy of a matchup because the -1 to hit is a really big problem for Bile, as they don't have any rerolls. So if they don't have +1 to hit up, like they can whiff real easily. And I think that's what happened to Anthony here. He whiffed a couple times, and there's not a ton that they can do about that. So good game for him, but still a matchup by the Matrix that we really wanted, that the Admech were able to facilitate. And then I've got a great 8 setup available, right? The remaining armies are Bile, Tactical Orcs, Votan, and Vanguard Ultras. I don't really want to play into Bile, but I have a good matchup into Orcs. Votan is kind of coin flippy, but I'm very happy about it. My joke about the Votan matchup for Admech is always that I don't care about Votan because they're really, really good at killing you once you've killed them, and my army doesn't kill anything. So I am very happy to go sit in combat with Votan with units that don't have any judgment tokens on them for the whole game. It'll be fine. But they don't want that. And then the Ultras I can play around well enough. So I get to play into the Orcs again. Tactical Orcs here. These are being piloted by... Man, why am I real bad at remembering the names of all these wonderful Euros? This is Christian. Yeah, absolutely. On his Orcs over here, German Orc player, very methodical individual, very careful pre-measurer, and an absolute pleasure to play against. This was a pretty reasonable matchup. Yeah, this round also goes quite poorly. The notable games here being me, Nick, Brian and Kit, like all in that low single digit kind of region. Brian got absolutely thunder smashed by the Votan here, 16-4, which is crazy because again, we don't really respect Votan all that much, and I know that he's been on a hunt ever since he's been playing against nothing but Votan, trying to learn this matchup better. No one was prepared for it, right? They've got Tim, he's a great Votan player, and just like no one outside of Germany plays Votan. It's kind of a meme, so props to him for taking out Brian in that way. Brian is not a man that loses a lot of games. That was really good. We knew from going into the Bile was going to be dangerous after it happened last time. We were hoping that he could squeeze a couple more points out of it. He got a 3 this time. Not ideal, but still okay. And then Kit got paired into the Chaos Knights. And this was the story that Kit was telling about. This was just some absurd variants, like stuff that Lucas would never shut up about if he ever got to do it as a Chaos Knights player. I think the Raven went down to 2 Brigands that were not in Melter range.
Shouldn't have brought a fucking plane, moron.
Just Melt is going crazy. So props to the Chaos Knight player. They put a 16 down. Kit came back with a 4. This Orcs matchup was a mess. So my mental is like still completely shattered after the game into the Eldar. And I frankly like radically under-respect the Zodgrod unit. I have not played against the Zodgrod unit. I conceptually understand what it does. And I was like, yeah, I can just put infiltrators in the way. And then I kind of looked left and right and was like, well, what's he going to do? Like, stand in front of me? I have infinite anti-infantry. If he pops Wa top 1, like I'm just tabling him. Like this is a really bad idea for him. I want to sit back. I'm going to play defensive. I'm going to like play a super safe game here and go for like a 10. This was a massive mistake. Jesus Christ. He goes first again. That Zodgrod unit goes out. He does pop the charm on Wa, and man, oh man, do they do a lot more damage than I expect. Their tagging is more effective than I expect it to be, and like I am penned in the entire game, just dealing with wave after wave of Orc nonsense. My reserves are useless because he's got them pinned all the way back. We were able to kill a decent amount of Orcs, but it's just not nearly fast enough over the course of 5 rounds. And I get completely 20'd here, which was just a disaster. Just a really, really bad round. This was, unfortunately, like this entire game comes down to poor deployment in that regard, based on not respecting this unit correctly. And like basically everything that happened in the game was an afterthought. We had a really good game. We had a lot of fun, but like there's just not a lot of coming back from that level of getting jailed. Completely avoidable situation, but yeah, this one's entirely on me. Fortunately, the round is not entirely on me, as if I had pulled out a 20, we're still only at 73 points here. This entire round goes very poorly. This is a little bit more of a more balanced pairings, right? We've got 3 greens, an orange, and pink is a flip there for Ben, playing the guard mirror match. He's playing into Arna, who is one of the best players on the planet. So props to him for pulling out an 8 in a mirror match there. But yeah, so a lot of games fall off hard. A lot of our good matchups fall down. A lot of our neutral matchups fall harder, and it's yeah, not a great round overall. So we get beaten down pretty hard.
What's the team morale like at this point? Because I mean, like, I was thinking after the first 2 rounds, we were obviously like in the middle of our whole team experience, so we were keeping up with you guys at Pyra while our rounds were going on and that kind of stuff. We were super excited that you all had crushed the first 2 rounds, but then like these last 2 seem pretty deflating. Are people still, have a go-getter attitude, or are some folks checking out? What's the vibes?
Yeah. Frankly, I'm not super impressed with the morale, and that's kind of coming top down a little bit here, right? Like, there's not a whole lot of big inspiring speeches going on. Like, Pumba's trying to rally people at this point after this round, like, but I think that people are feeling a little bit defeated here. A lot of people who are used to winning a lot of games are taking a lot of losses. We're not looking super cohesive. It was honestly kind of the biggest bummer of the event that I feel like we could have there could have been a lot more unity and a lot more getting things back together here, right? This is something that I think is incredibly important in leadership in the team, right? This was something that we ran into at Champs Cup last year. We had a couple of members that felt like they were lagging a little bit behind, and it's like real important to me in my capacity as a co-captain and to be really rallying people there. This situation felt a little bit more, hey guys, like, remember, you're all here, essentially auditioning, do better, and that the vibe was definitely not what I would have preferred if I had been in charge here.
Inspiring.
Yeah, so that was kind of a bummer, and I think that you could see it in the body language of a lot of our players that people were just simply not here to be as excited about that. I think also, like, the polls ran the show a little bit here for us, which I just did not. I don't think it got everyone quite as excited to be under their tutelage. Like, as much as they are highly knowledgeable people that we really enjoy and they're awesome, they're good friends and whatnot. I think it just it weakened the unity and the identity and the morale of the team to be to have such a radical change in organizational structure. I don't know.
Especially when I know that you and Pope and Smith Hanna had done a ton of work and were really excited about pairings and, like, working together to run the show. Having things taken over by an outside party seems like a bit of a bummer. So just kind of compounding on the frustration. I can see where that's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, it is what it is. But anyway, so we get to move into to round 5 here then against the Swedes, and this will be a real good time for us. The Swedes are historically good friends of ours, and also a historically very strong nation that often gets under-respected. They came in 4th this year. They did better than us at WCC, but they can be kind of oddballs. They take some interesting stuff. So we were really excited to get into this pairing. We always have fun with them. The Swedes wear they have little hats, the yellow and blue hats with the funny little propellers on the top of them, which are adorable.
Yes.
They're always a great time. So if there's anyone we wanted to play in round 5 to get a nice pick-me-up round, regardless of the outcome, they might beat our asses. They're going to be a ton of fun. So we were really looking forward to this. And a real interesting round here, right? The thought process in pairings was, hey, we've got a couple players that have been doing really well and a couple players who have been doing not as well. Let's try to pivot away from the normal US plan of pins, 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 and focus a little bit more on getting good matchups for our players who have been putting up the numbers, who might be in the right headspace for it, and just kind of get everyone else to draw things out. And those players that have been doing really well are people like Anthony, Ruben, and Sam, Brian. Try to find maybe 2 of those 4 guys, some good matchups, and see what we can do about that. In this case, it was Anthony and it was Ruben, and then everyone else played for draws. This worked out really well in pairings. The games looked nothing like that, though. So let's kind of get into what happened here, because it was an absolute chaotic round. So we first defend with Nick here, with Fromm on his Eldar, and they attack him with Demons and Bridgehead. This is one of the places where the Swedes are doing their nonsense. Everyone else who brought Demons is playing Legion of Excess. They're playing Index Demons, the Incursion. The Swedish Demons player here, very competent player, kicked a lot of ass this weekend. Basically brought his WTC list. Was like, this still works. It's great. Demons have gotten better with 6-inch deep striking charges now. Like, just going to go for it. And he did really well. Nick had this down as a draw, and he got 20'd. So props to the Swedes for that. That demon list is real cool. Meanwhile, they're first defending with Gladius Ultras, which we threw Brian in and Sam at, both of which had reasonable matchups, right? Sam has just gotten off of getting a win into the other Ultras. I think he got like a 9 or a 10, maybe an 11. Into Germany. Sam got a 9. Yeah, so a little bit better than that. Comes out with a 12 this time, wins that game, which is awesome. We second defend with Guard, with Jurek here, and they attack with Guard as well. And we're like, cool, if Ben can get an 8 against Arna, he can surely get an 8 against anybody else. But unfortunately, there was a bit more mismatch here in the list composition. And the opponent who's in Guard here had a lot more engineers and a little more infantry, whereas Ben was 8 on this double Dorn situation. So between that and a couple of other situations, Ben ends up getting rolled here. He gets a 1 in the mirror match. Oh, it hurts. But that's how it goes sometimes. We get Ruben into this Necron matchup again, which he had smashed earlier in the weekend, I'm pretty sure. We're very happy about that. He was practiced on it. And that comes back at 10. Oh, which bites. We really wanted that to be a big pushing matchup. Now I know Ruben was in kind of an interesting spot here where he was ahead early on, but knowing that we were trending pretty drawish, he was told to extend a little bit more and to push a little bit harder. And it came back to bite him. He comes back with that 10. So props to Ruben for making the adjustments asked for by the leadership here. But unfortunate that it didn't end up working out the way we would have liked. Kit ends up scrum defending with his Marines here and gets Chaos Knights again. And to be clear, this is where Kit was like, trust me, guys, it'll be fine. I've downgraded the matchup from an expected win to an expected tie just to be extra, careful and safe. And they said, that's fine. Go get us a tie. And he 20-0s this Chaos Knights player whose melted guns are not feeling quite as spicy. This is a little bit more the expected result from Double Oath Storm Raven, where we're just killing every Chaos Knight on the table. Just tabled him in 3, I think. Their scrum defender is the Bile, and this is a matrix that I just don't have a ton of great play into. So this is my time to get sacrificed. Someone's going to jump on a grenade. We're going to play into the Bile, which I don't like, but someone's got to do it. So we're going into our orange mashup here. And then our refused ends up being Siphon his Orcs into their Eldar. Brian, the absolute people's champion here, comes back with a 15 out of what he considers a pretty neutral matchup. Hell yeah, Brian. Nicely done. And Anthony gets their Death Guard in the Forgotten, which is money. Heavy table able, so he's hiding super well. He's getting in his crump, and he also comes back with a 15. So we get big wins there out of Anthony and out of Brian. Small win out of Sam and a huge win out of Kit. It's awesome. But unfortunately, big losses balances him out with Fromm on his Eldar and Jurek on the Guard. This game I get to play here into the Bile was a ton of fun. This is into Jesper, one of the Swedes. He's a longtime Swedish player on his Bile. Now, he plays Bile a little bit different than Anthony. He's a little bit more into the MSU trading kind of nonsense, whereas Anthony really likes his big bricks that swing around and take table space. This is a much better matchup for me than the Anthony style because he does have a lot fewer bodies that need to stand places and just a little bit less gas, right? He can't quite hold W and just smash right through me. So we get to play a very nickel and dimey game of back and forth. He does get to pick the table here, and he grabs table 2, which is a heavy table that really favors melee staging again over shooting staging. So that's kind of awkward. We are playing on Scorched Earth, which is nice. because it means his primary can never really get that crazy, and I'm able to deny his primary a couple times, which is cool. Bottom 5, I get a mid-table burn off, which brings my primary back up. But yeah, really fun back and forth tradey game. This is another one where, like, if I go first, the infiltrators and then the following turn with Taraxi jail him sufficiently that I can actually get proper primary lead here, which would have been really cool. But I went second, just rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5, just kept going second all day, and wasn't able to really take advantage of that of the jailing element of the jail list. So we have to play more of a nickel and diming trade game, which is a lot of fun. There's a couple really interesting moments in this game. There's a big one where he leaves his home field just a little bit under defended with his screens. So I ingress Taraxi Skystalkers that can then advance forward, shoot, and fire and fade onto his home field. So then he has to counter ingress his obliterators onto his home field instead of somewhere useful, just to put 4 more OC there. So I can't quite get enough OC on to take the objective away. So then instead of fire and fading forward, I flip over to advance and charge backwards the direction they came to wrap up his Rhino in midfield instead. Like, super tactical back and forth, really active Warhammer going on here. Super fun. Jesper's doing a really good job keeping his possessed in these really awkward positions where I can't quite get all the shots on him that I want to. So I kill over the course of the game. I think I killed 14 possessed because he brought one back 4 different times before I could put the entire squad down, and they just keep ducking and dodging. They eventually end up on my home field before I kill them. But yeah, really great game. I come back with a 7, which is great for that matchup. I'm very happy with that. It's a very scary thing to deal with because I can't kill him efficiently and he can slaughter me, especially on this particular table. Going second, maybe going first, I'm able to pull this all the way up to a 9 or a 10, but I'll take a 7. But yeah, there are literally 2 people who hit their colors lined up as predicted here, which is me and Anthony, with me expected to lose, and I managed to keep it to pretty small, and Anthony expected to win. He comes back with a big one. Everyone else is just all over the place here, and we somehow end up at an 80-80 exact draw at the end of this round. So very chaotic finishing round, but overall a real good time into the Swedes. We always have a good run. So we end up 2-2-1 at the event overall, which puts us in 5th place in the bottom half, which normally would be a massive bummer, but like the teams that finish ahead of us are all highly competent teams, right? It's France, it's Germany, it's the Swedes themselves. I think it's Poland A finishes ahead of us as well. Just double check that. Poland. So very, very much top teams in the global scene. Obviously not the results that we're looking for, but not the worst event of all time.
How do you overall feel about the list that you designed and the way it was able to? Because it seemed like it was kind of the tale of 2 tapes here, where you had a lot of success being an attacker bully, but like the matchups you actually ended up in seemed, other than the Yanari one, which just kind of seemed unfortunate, it just kind of seemed like you ended up in a bunch of potentially iffy matchups. Or did you feel overall pretty good about the matchups you ended up in? I'm seeing like Orcs twice and Bile in particular.
Yeah, the Orcs matchup is just that I had bad data on the Orcs matchup. I think in reality, it's a fairly neutral game with the way that it's being played. The taking out the Ruststalkers made it significantly worse. And then also the Orcs list I had been playing were much earlier iterations where people were on a lot of Breakaboys. Nice job, Lucas, on your clairvoyance here. I got to give you some props here because everyone was so high on Breakaboys, the best unit in the Orcs, one of the best units of the game. And you were like, this unit's bad. Maybe I'll take one of them. Yeah. And everyone was laughing at you. And then here they are. They're all cutting them. They're all taking Snaggas.
I feel sorry, just by 10 fucking seconds.
Please,
here.
no,
I feel
absolutely.
so vindicated about this. Because everyone was like, dude, 3 damage, so good. Like, guys, literally 2 attacks. Like, it can kill possessed, and that's about it.
Yeah, possessed. It's also like people. I think people just love bomb squig so much. It's like, oh my god, Another unit that also has bomb squigs, except that unit wants to advance and charge all the time, so it's never actually using its bomb squigs. And like it's a missile unit, so it never uses both of them.
Yeah,
And it needs a war. Like
any list at the team event without like at the team event we went to, there was a few tactical lists. There were a few that had 0 Snagas. I was like, instant green, dude. I like, you can't contest my primary. Instantly win this. Absolutely crazy to me how greedy people were being with like the 18 breakers. I've seen that unit whiff so much. And then I hear random people just be like, yeah, tactical's so OP, breakers are broken. I'm like, say that again, dude. Like,
no,
play
there is a very
ones, please.
Yeah, there is a very clear unit that is a problem in orcs, and it is not that it is not the
and it went
points.
up. It went up in points. Yeah, there you go.
No, it didn't.
Half of it.
It literally didn't.
That's 120 points now, Tyler.
Yeah, the tank bus just went up.
They went up. Jesus Christ. Cannot with these people. Anyway, but yeah, so I had bad data for like 3 reasons. Like A, my list got worse against orcs since the data. B, the orc lists got better against me since the data. And C, the pilots were a little bit more attuned to the army than the ones that I've been practicing against. So like triple whammy, should put that back in neutral. I think that's a fine matchup. I just need to be playing it as a neutral instead of trying to push that into wins. And the Zogrod situation, like that only happens once. That will not be a problem again. My German phone was sort of like, yeah, man, if you just play this correctly, like this is totally fine. I was the problem in a lot of these situations. So I totally stand by the list. Like I understand that if you look at the raw numbers, you're like, man, you got a bunch of bad scores. No, the list is very good at what it does. It has like very solid matchups into the armies that it needs to. It bullies things very nicely. It's scared of some of the meta, but not enough that it's the end of the world. It's scared of Purge, but not like being scared of Purge is not as big of a deal as I think I always make it out to be. Because you like, even though my opponents get a ton of free primary, I still get plenty of primary, right? If I just get kill hold every turn, I get 32 points. Like, come on. It doesn't matter. Even if they get 50, right? 32 points of primary means that I'm only down 3 diff. Cool. If we go parity on diff on secondaries and I come back with a 7, like, that's fine. That's like the bad situation. Because no one's beating me on secondary who's not also brutalizing me. So the neutral matchups go down to like, yeah, basically everything ticks down 1 notch. It's not crazy. Yeah, so maybe the list should have 2 squads of Ruststalkers instead of the Infiltrators. Maybe we should move like 5 Jumpy Bats and go 10-5-5 Jumpy, 10-10-5 Fire maybe, was another thing that I've been back and forth on. But like small stuff. The idea of the list I think is still solid. I think it still fits a really good role in a team setting. And I think that it also plays really well into some of the other things that are propping up. Like I'm seeing more and more Awakened Krons trying to counter Eldar and Guard. And a lot of things that look like that, the Admech counters as well, right? Like I really love playing into Awakened Krons since we do a ton of damage. They like to be on objectives. They get slaughtered. We have the anti-infantry. They don't have nearly the firepower to move through some of my stuff. So still very happy with the list. I just need to be playing it more, particularly need to be playing it more in person. It's really tricky to rely entirely on TTS data for how things are working. But yeah, I like this list. It's still really solid. I recommend it. I'm not going to play it for like 2 weeks, I think. I need to just kind of flush my brain and play some other stuff. There's just a ton of other Warhammer that's interesting to me. I played, so like in the month of February, I had like 2.5 weeks and I played like at least 13 games, I think, in that time frame of prep for this event, which is just like draining when all of those are 4+ hour TTS games. Like none of this is re-racks, none of this is quick stuff in person. And a lot of it is trying to learn new elves and guard at the same time that you're trying to make sure your army works as well. So like it's just, it'll be nice to take a little bit of a step back and focus on something that, you know, is maybe a little bit less draining, but I think I stand by the army. It's still a really good list.
Nice. Cool to hear. Very unique. I love a big old wall of wounds. That shit's cool.
Yeah.
Speaking
it's
of big
fun.
old wall of wounds and people who really showed up last weekend or 2 weekends ago, or whenever the hell, Mr. Pope kicked ass, dude. Let's go.
Hell yeah.
I love a Xenos king who knows what he's about and kicks some ass, dude. That's fucking awesome. Big props to him.
Absolutely. Vanguard, great army. Been saying it the whole time. Glad that it's doing what it's supposed to do out on the big stage there. Oh man, yeah, Sam's a super solid guy. Love that dude. Yeah, but yeah, so that's kind of the wrap up on Pyra. Having seen how this all shook out, both in terms of prep and the event itself, what are you thinking in terms of both how to prep and what you'll need to prep? How does this inform your thoughts going into Home Nations, Lucas? On what you can learn from our experiences here, because we're like 6 weeks from that now, 7.
Yeah, it's about a month and a half out. So basically in the next month or so, I got to decide what army I'm playing. Without giving like too much away, I think there's a lot of good options, all within my very familiar wheelhouse, right? Like in the last year or two, I've played orcs for the team. I've played a little bit with Death Guard, and I played a fair amount of CK. And I think everyone knows at this point that tactical is a known quantity. Maybe some stuff changes around within the list. And that's all well and good. And I'm happy to keep iterating that because I love orcs. There's also some other orc detachments I think that are worth exploring. Orcs are very diverse right now, and you can build them for different things in your team. If you just want like a general all-rounder, you can play tactical, and it's excellent. If you want like a hunter who can, snipe certain matchups and get big scores, Warhorde can do that very well. I also think Green Tide can do that very well. Unfortunately, both of those have the classic, world leader type hunter problem where your matrix is going to be full of flips and reds, and there's unpredictability and uncertainty all over the place. So it kind of depends what you need, but you can build orcs for a lot of different things. So orcs is one option. Seeing a lot of Death Guard. I have not looked at France's or Sweden's or any other Death Guard list from the event. So I'm about to go downstairs and do that in about 5 minutes because that sounds awesome. I love Death Guard. And when France took them to WTC last year and won, I was like, this is fucking hype, dude. I love me some high level Death Guard. So I'm curious what are in these lists. I'm guessing they're both Plague Company, but should be super cool either way. So Death Guard is another thing I'll probably be poking around with coming up. And CK is the other very obvious one. Like a lot of the teams that did very well were running CK. Not quite sure exactly what they're trying to do. I think they have some good or decent enough matchups into some of the heavy hitters right now. I think into Eldar and Guard, they're not too bad. I have yet to play the tactical matchup, but just being very familiar with both sides of those armies, I think it could be pretty decent for CK. So it's I think CK is another really solid army, and there's not as much that's creative or fun or unique there, right? It's the same thing that's been played for the last 2 years, but it is still very strong, and I enjoy playing it. So that is another option for me as well. There's just a lot to explore right now, and cool to see the variety of things that we're doing well at Pyra.
Oh yeah, man. The Death Guard lists are unfortunately complete snorefest in my mind, at least. They're freaking parking lots with Morty, but so it goes.
That's a
I am really excited for the future to see some freaking innovation in the guard space. I am so tired of Bridgehead, and there are other really good detachments. I think we've seen Hammer Strike in particular seems really spooky. Auto 6 Advance everyone is just really good. It's an excellent.
Auto 6 Advance Tower Rocks through walls are funny as fuck.
I gotta say, it is very vindicating to me to finally see everyone on the Tower Rocks hype train. After I got yelled at for so long for not playing Chimerae in Brood Brothers,
dude, I don't know if you saw. Okay, actually, never mind. We can talk about this after the show. But yeah, then the Chimera went up 10 points, and all of a sudden, all the guard players were like, "Oh, what's this? Oh," I'm like, guys, this was literally there the entire time.
Yeah,
You think 2 flamers is better than advance and disembark and half the footprint? You're an idiot, but okay.
yeah. It was funny though on TTS informing all of the guard players that their freaking Taroxes should not have storm bolters on them, and they're like, "Why? Because you don't fit under the second floor of the WTC ruin." And they're like, "Huh." Anyway, I'm gonna shoot my storm bolter at you. And then we get to the event and like half of them are like, oh shit, it doesn't fit. No. Damn. But greedy ass bastards. Anyway, but yeah, Tarox
It's
very
okay.
cool.
Yeah, we all know it. We all like. There's no need to say it. Guard players are donkeys. Well, there's no need to say it, but I just said it.
It's like a
It's true.
wrecking ball moment there.
I've never.
That
had
was
it
the
for
other
advantage.
thing. I totally forgot about that in my first Orcs matchup. The way the ladders work. I also I hadn't been thinking about that on TTS. Like I really need to reevaluate the Orc matchup on the fact that I feel like all the Orc players are just neglecting to mention that you can see them over the walls,
Oh yeah.
and people just forget about it, and then they don't shoot. You're behind a wall, man. How much worse do Orcs get when we stop pretending that works? So
They get 4 inches of disembark distance worse.
yes.
good.
But also, Brian always puts his trucks up, not almost up against the wall, so that there's always room to get out. It's really hard to block off all of the spaces, and to just be like, okay, you get shot at. Then have fun with that. Curious. I'll play that some more. But
I love modeling for advantage personally. I think it's really
great,
fun.
dude. Shout out to the German guy Christian. He was like, "Hey, just to be clear, I've got this one just to show you this is how it works. The others are just like it." But this, yeah, I was very appreciative of that.
How many question? You played against Orcs twice. How many trucks did they have in their list?
I think they both. Christian had 3. The English guy had 3 or 4. England Orcs had 4, so 4 and then 3.
Icky.
German, just to confirm, Orcs 3 trucks. Yeah.
What's the right amount of trucks, dude?
7.
No.
I will also
Shut
say it
that
was pretty
down.
funny. I think it was Christian. Yeah, was like, yeah, man. So one of my trucks has a wrecking ball, and I'm like, oh, is it just a model issue, or he's like, no, so that it's harder to wrap.
That's
Oh my
funny.
fucking god.
That's funny.
Holy shit, we've evolved to the next step of the wrecking ball meta.
Yeah, man.
That is so funny.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, dude. Props. That's fair enough,
Holy shit.
man.
I might have to get on some of that.
right?
God damn it, dude.
I do love wrapping trucks.
Lucas
German
digging the
tech.
wrecking ball out of his bag of goodies. Where did I put this 10 years ago, dude?
Definitely slam it on the battle wagon. That's.
I mean,
real
when they
great.
told him
No?
he had to put his ladders on, he's
Oh.
like, yeah, dude, where are my ladders?
Yeah.
Let me go find these boys.
Should we do some questions?
Yeah, for sure. We were a little late getting the thread up. That's on me. So we've only got a couple of questions here. If you want to ask questions for future episodes, where we will hopefully publish the threads earlier on, again, it's in that Discord down in the description over at the Patreon. But we do have a couple here. Starting off with James here asks, how do you feel about Purge the Foe? Like I said earlier, it's not that big of a deal. It just leads to a lot of draws, right? It's very, very playable as Admech. It's not pleasant. I hate it. But yeah, I don't think it's good for the game. Because in more normal matchups, it just makes the game very drawish. If you're both if no one ever gets hold more and you trade kill more twice and you both get 38 primary, 40 primary, I don't know. I don't think it gets very, very good or interesting, but it's certainly a thing. You guys have other thoughts on Purge?
Here's one thought that I had, and I have not thought very hard about this as normal. So if it's an idiotic thought, please tell me. What if the kill more checked with the same like interval as hold more, right? So like, what if at the end of your opponent's turn, if you killed more during that period of time, you get 4 points? Does that make any sense? Instead of it being at the battle round. So your opponent like always sees how many units that you kill, and then is like, okay, that's my number to match or beat. And then if they're unable to match or beat you, then you get kill more.
That's how it works right now.
No. So I see what you're saying though, because right now it alternates, right? Someone is always trying to run up the score, and then someone else is trying to catch them. But if instead it's like round one is not relevant, and then does round one have to become relevant? No. So player one kills a certain amount on top up of one, and then at the end of bottom of one, player one scores kill more as normal, right? If they kill 3 and the opponent kills 2, they'll get more. But then going into the following player turn, in middle of 2, or at the end of top of 2, player B will score kill more if the opponent's killed fewer than 2 units now. So you're always comparing. So it's never just one of us killed more, the other one killed more, or it's a tie. It kind of takes the zero-sum game out of it. And then
you can score kill more, and then your opponent can score it, and then you can score it, and they can score it. It just is a matter of like working the tally up.
Kill tally you have to try to beat.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you stop it, you deny it. Interesting.
But that removes, in my mind, I think people's biggest complaint with this, that I agree with, is the whole arbitrary, like, you went second, you have a huge advantage. And I think this goes a long way to this basically removes that. Because you're checking it every single turn, regardless of the battle round.
And then what happens turn 5?
I don't know. Like I said, I haven't thought that about it. But just on principle, like, at a certain point it can end, whatever, maybe halfway through turn 5 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with that if that also, that means like having one fewer set of kill mores available. Because my biggest problem with the mission is that like the killing and the holding being at parity is very silly to me. When kill more is something that almost always someone is getting, or at least has the opportunity to be getting, and hold more is something that is incredibly difficult to get your hands on. Those two things being equally weighted seems very silly to me.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
I think also kill 1 and hold 1 could drop down to being 3 points each, with the mores staying at 4 points. Maybe kill 1, hold 1 are 3, kill more is 4, and hold more is 5? Maybe that's too biased. I don't know.
Sure, that could be done. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just because, like, the base of we both start at 32 if we both play Warhammer for 4 turns is, like, very silly. Right? That's on linchpin if we both just hold our expansions all game. No one denies any primary. Like, that's silly.
I think for me, I don't like Purge a lot because, like what you were saying, it creates a lot of ties in team rounds. I think that was the one round of the event because we had Purge round 3 at our team event. And I think like almost every like round ended in a tie. Yeah, because it's just like you get a matchup that you're kind of neutral in, and you're like, I'm just gonna sit behind a wall and I'll tie. You know, like because part of like Warhammer is a lot of like, you know, like or like at least all the other missions, they feel like it's like deny expansion, protect expansion, like that sort of thing. Purge, it's like I'm gonna go sit on my expansion, you sit on your expansion. If you expose a unit to the middle to threaten hold more, I'll kill it and probably get kill more off that. So you've threatened 4 points and just given me 4 more points instead. So there's like no reason for us to ever expose units. So we'll just like sit here and stare at each other, you know. But secondary cards tell you to go expose units, so you do end up giving up kill more because of that, you know. And so it's just like a very boring. I get that it's unique, which is cool, but like the way that it's played isn't that fun. So, especially in a team setting where you're not like, oh, I need to win this game by 1 point to win. It's like, no, I need to not bleed points to bring home more points to my team. So like, unless it's like a matchup where you know you can really pressure your opponent, the correct choice is always to just kind of play as neutral as possible.
Yeah. What if Purge the Foe shifted from being a primary to being a special rule that was at the end of every battle round, the person who killed more units scores 3 or 4 points.
Scores 1 secondary point, like banners.
Yeah, 1 point.
Let's go. Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More fun. But yeah, that's Purge. Thoughts on Admech in the current metagame? This comes from Lucas Erickson, parenthetical aura. I think that Admech are sleeper really solid. They have good play into a lot of the top meta picks. Even with the tanks, they still have decent play. They still have great play into Guard. They still have acceptable play into Eldar if you're good at it. And they have just a really great set of tools, and they're generally efficient data sheets. They're going to struggle at some mid-table games because Ultramarines are out there, and that's just real hard. But you don't need to be a princess run too much more than a lot of other things. And as people start teching more and more for Elves and Guard, that tech is not necessarily nearly as useful against you because you're T4 with a 5-up invuln, as opposed to T3 and benefiting from that 3-up armor. And you're 2 wounds instead of 1 wound. And you have stealth. So like the things that are good at killing elves and scions are not necessarily good at killing Admech bodies. So we'll see. Natural follow-up question from Kels asks, what changes do you make to Admech for singles? You could probably just drop the fire bats and play 3 disintegrators instead. I think you drop the fire bats and like 5 or 10 infiltrators. I probably got the list in my phone, frankly. If I just
drop the fires altogether, or you just some of them?
No, drop all of them. I don't think they're a unit worth taking if you're going to play in Protector, which is I think what you want to do in singles.
Got it.
It makes you definitely worse into elves, so maybe you still want to have some of them, and maybe with an ingress you're okay just getting there off the 12-inch move off the deep strike. But I don't know, man. Not having advanced stuff.
Is there any way to take the Celtic Thrallnet to like maybe make 1 unit work, or is it too awkward to set up?
The problem with the Thrallnet is it has to be on a marshal, and that marshal has to be on the board in the command phase.
Ah.
So like 3 hoops.
No.
Yeah. Bad enhancement. Like that's clearly what it wants to do. If you could put that enhancement on like a Scatros, totally. We're in business. Or if the enhancement just worked at the end of the movement phase instead of the end of like let me just fully 100% confirm. It's not sorry. It's not even command phase. It's start of the battle round. So if you go second, you can't even use it on an ingress squad.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it's a bad enhancement.
But it is really goated on last cannon chickens.
Yeah, dude. Sure. Anyway, yeah, this is the list here. So yeah, you have. And also I'm down a Vanguard brick in this list. I have 2 marshals with fire and fade, 2 technos, rangers, 30 Vanguard, 3 Dune Riders, 10-10, 5 Skystalkers, 5-5-5 infiltrators, 3 disintegrators, Draxus. Yeah, that list is great. That gets the job done. 1995. That's probably what I would play in singles. It's less fun, but it's probably better.
Cool.
Sam then asks, how much worse was piloting that Admech list in person versus TTS or in theory? Can we get a PSA for any future participants? And then a second question as well. So it is miserable in person to move around and particularly to roll the dice. Like the movement I was expecting, and like I've played Horde armies before, but like particularly the Skystalkers were like against the demons, for example, he's got a Soul Grinder. God, that thing's a pain in the ass to deal with. I need to shoot all of my shots at it, but that means I need to get 59 dice, roll to hit, roll to wound, take good saves, and like we're hitting on 4s, wounding on 6s. He's got a 4-up save at best, probably a 3-up. We're doing 1 or 2 damage, but every one of those damage really matters and adds up because that's the only way that the army does damage is by committee. So you have to roll all the dice all the time. And it's free damage because you hop out, shoot, and then hop back behind the wall. So like you got to do it. And on TTS going plus 25, plus 25, plus 10, remove 1, roll all, delete, roll all, delete. Okay, there's your saves. Is so pleasant compared to counting up all those dice and whatnot.
Yeah, especially like the flamers where it's like shot generation and then you have to reroll the
Yeah.
wound. Like that activation probably takes 3 minutes.
It takes a while. The Scutarii, the Vanguard, are also a pain because it's 5 different profiles. Because you're like plasma, arc rifle, transuranic, pistol on the character, radium carbines, all rerolling to hit, all rerolling to wound, all with different stats. Like hazard check on the plasma. These things are a massive pain. But so I would recommend practicing doing that in person a little bit more than I did. You can try the thing where like you have different colored dice corresponding to different weapons. I found it was just better to roll them all quickly, one at a time, than to try something like that. Just because it feels awkward with ordering and allocation and whatnot. It's just better to not do that, but you could try it. And then second question I was saying, what are you trying to do after having a rough round or two? How did you try to get back on board? I think after the Elder Round did a really poor job of this. I was basically instructed, don't drink so much that you're hungover in the morning and play and throw. And I was not hungover, but I did throw. Mission half failed. Try to have, you gotta laugh about it so you don't cry about it. Have a good attitude. Try to be picking up and learning from it, but overall, it was you got to flush and move on to the next thing. I did a much better job of that with the round into Germany, and I think that honestly, it was really nice to go into a bad matchup after that because I was very excited to use a different skill set and focus on different parts of my game, and I was really intent on how can I find in every point that I can be denying here? How can I be as much of a thorn in this guy's side as possible, as opposed to just focusing on, how is my macro going to result in winning this game? It's real easy, especially in an event like this where it's such a big deal for selections and whatnot, to get focused on the big picture. And it was really important to just zoom in on the very smallest, like how am I playing this turn? Stop thinking so much about how I'm playing, like the event is going. Like we're gonna, how do I handle this movement phase? Just really zoom in. Did either of you guys have particularly bad rounds at your team event that you were able to flush? Do you guys have further thoughts on that or other things to do? I know you guys have had bad rounds in the past. I've been on teams with you guys. I know all you do is win, Lucas, but I've seen you lose games before.
That is not true. Yeah, there was definitely a couple times at WTC in particular where I basically lost us the round. Like I'm thinking of the Poland round from this last year, right? Where if I hit my matrix, we win against last year's incumbent winner, which would have been sick. In those situations, yeah, like you say, it's one of the things you can do is focus in on small things like crap I just threw, I feel terrible, I don't know if I can keep going. Like if you're in the next game, focus on how you're going to move optimally. Don't think about like the score of this game or how well your pairings went. Just like focus on the thing that's right in front of you that you know how to execute on. That can be really helpful as well. Some people really thrive on pressure. Others find it very too much. It's important to know who you are so that you can lean into whichever side of that spectrum you're on. For me, I really like pressure, like the knowledge that after that Poland round, everyone was still relying on me to deliver, allowed me to like focus and just do the thing that I needed to do. But for some people that kind of pressure is too much. And in that case, I would try to tune out all the other stuff going on as much as possible and focus on your game. I don't know. It's tough. It's one of the more tough things about playing teams is feeling like you're a disappointment.
Yeah. Also, just for the record, Lucas, there is no amount of hitting matrix that wins us that round into Poland. You would have needed to have gotten a 20 for us to win that round, and that was certainly not your fucking matrix.
God, that was such a mess of a game.
That was, that
secret mission though.
That secret mission though. That was the that was the coolest moment in any game that happened for America at WTC last year, as far as I'm concerned. That was goated. Sick as hell. Watching the life drain from Kruger's eyes when he went from I'm getting a 20 to I'm getting a 14. as he started realizing, and the coaches kept going by. It was incredible. Anyway, last but not least, we got some questions that I realize they're not actually in the thread, but they came in early, which is even better. Props to Rob Hunter for that, who asked 3 questions here. Do you think your Admech infantry skew is only suitable for 8-man teams? Would it be too skew for 5s? And what changes would you make to adjust to 5s? That's a great question. I'm playing it in Vibe Check right now. Like I'm playing in our 5s TTS league that we do over at StatCheck. Again, check out the Discord in the description. So we'll see. I don't think I would change anything right now because I think that if you're playing 5s right now, 3 of your 5, if you're playing optimally, are Guard, Orcs, and Elves, and I think those are all fine matchups for me. And I think that it's much harder to hide the Elves and the Orcs, the Elves and the Guard if they don't have as much to hide behind. So I think it's probably still fine, but it's definitely a risk. Yeah, I think it's better though than playing the tanks would be in 5s. But maybe Admech just doesn't have a role in your optimal 5, so that's kind of a choice you can make there. But I would not change the list. I would either play it or not. Cool. Alrighty. That appears to be all the questions that we've got from y'all. If you'd like to ask questions again in the future, you can join us on that Patreon Discord in the description. While you're in the description, check out some of our wonderful sponsors over there, such as Red Dragon Games, Saltire Games, Whalen Yutani Terrain, and J15 Games, all of which are linked with a couple of promotional codes for the great stuff they do. If you want to keep the conversation going, again, that Patreon Discord is there. And a little bit below that in the link section, if you want to keep the conversation going at a more one-on-one level, more personal interaction, you can check out stat-check.com/coaching, where all 3 of us, as well as a variety of other members of the StatCheck team, including such wonderful names as Nassim and Pumbaa, are available for coaching to meet your individualized needs. That includes calls, list writing, and TTS games, as you may find appropriate. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Yeah, good stuff.
Nice. That was Pyra.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I'm going to go take a nap.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I think our next show will be quite soon, and we'll be debriefing our team's event from the same weekend, which should be interesting.
Absolutely. So throw your comments in the threads to hear about that. We'll try to get that one going as quickly as possible. I'm really excited to break down some of the stuff here because I haven't gotten to hear the nitty gritty yet about how this actually went down, and it seemed like a pretty good score. And we're getting the full squad on, right? The rest of the boys will be here for that.
We'll get
awesome.
However many can make it. Yep.
Hell yeah, dude. Looking forward to it. Sweet. Anything else you guys want to say to the masses before we sign off for the week?
No, sir.
Fantastic. Well, with that all being said and done, thanks so much for joining us. I've been Tyler. He's been Lucas. He's been Nick. I don't know if you can hear him, but we'll see you guys next time. Talk about the other team event. It'll be fun. Take care, y'all.